welcome to episode 138 of Floating Through Film. This week we continue our series on Roberto Rossellini with two of his, I don't know how I describe these, I guess his more poetic episodic films,
for sure.
I guess I would call them. They're both different. I guess that's how I would compare the two. That's why I picked them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Structurally,
Loosely related images forming a narrative somehow.
Is there narrative?
Is it narrative? Yeah, I was like, I don't really see it as...
If there's narrative, it's formed by the person watching.
Yes, exactly.
Which is
It's
another
narrative
reason.
you want, I guess.
Yeah, but that's why I didn't do them in order of like. It's kind of this one came out before Europe 51.
Yeah, I think it was before
Yeah.
any of the...
Yeah. It's like this one,
Roman
then Europe 51, Voyage to Italy, then India. But I'll have some reasons a little later on why these two even more make sense together. But yeah, those are the movies we're doing this week. If I'm being honest, this is like we're really starting Rossellini now. I think I said that last week, kind of, but this is like truly we're starting.
No,
like,
last week we started.
This is like
we started
we're
him
entering
last week.
prime Rossellini.
Last week we started him. No.
Because I had that tweet a while ago where I tweeted like it's actually still crazy. If you go on Letterboxd right now and look up Rossellini's biography, it just says like he was an Italian film director known for Rome Open City and Paisan, and that's all it says.
Okay.
And
Voyage in Italy was the real.
because I posted that on Twitter a while ago, and then because I posted just all of his movies he made after the neo-realist movies from like Flowers, St. Francis on, and it's like there's a lot of stuff he made, obviously, and to me that's like the true Rossellini. But that's the thing. Like, oh yeah, I was gonna say I compared him in the tweet to like LeBron's career. Compare like how like the early careers like when he was on the Cavs before he went to Miami and actually started winning rings. So now we're entering like Miami LeBron eras. That's kind of my point, with these two great
Terrible
movies.
analogy.
That's
It's a great analogy. How's that not?
Because everyone recognizes LeBron James is good. Everyone talks about the Heat and
but
the Cavs era.
this is known as prime LeBron. 28 when he's like when they won 67.
But you just made the
games.
point that no one recognizes that is prime Rossellini.
No, but it is. It's a fact. So.
But no one recognizes it
No,
that
wait.
way. So there's different. It's like
People do recognize it. Like I'm going to talk like Ty Gallagher recognizes it.
but not a lot of people,
Godard.
which I feel like was your point.
But I mean, it doesn't matter what a lot of people think about Rossellini. I'm just saying this is
I don't
true.
know, the analogy it's a weird analogy. I don't know.
This is Rossellini's prime. This is where he started cooking. Where he's like, and I'm going to start talking about a little bit now about it. But like one example I just mentioned was why did I even pick these two movies together? The structural elements of the film, the kind of episodic nature where like even Rossellini is starting to give up more and more of the kind of traditional elements he saw that kind of was holding film back in a way,
Yeah.
Like Blake mentioned narrative, but
Semi-coherent
narrative. Like is there narrative really? It's more just like you said, it's like loose images kind of put together.
You can form a narrative if you want.
I do think there is narrative, especially in India, but it's like not in the level of.
You have to be paying attention.
Yeah, and it's more like you have to connect it really in your head.
It's kind of an inverse of like Voyage in Italy in a way, or Voyage in Italy, where like you could say like he spends a lot of time on the regular narrative, but then kind of goes into these like documentary-esque elements. But in Envy it's reverse, where it's like you could say the majority of the movie is kind of these documentary elements that kind of like all of a sudden just like go into these like random kind of like narrative. Almost like stories in a way,
Yes.
kind of like free flowing.
I see what you're saying.
It's
yeah,
like an inverse of Voyage in Italy.
Okay, yeah, I like that. I don't know what else. I guess before I get into my episode this week, is there anything else that sticks out about these two films?
Both great films.
Which one do you guys like more?
Flower St. Francis.
It's hard.
I don't know if that's a
Hard
hot.
to
I don't
choose.
know if that's a hot take.
I don't think so.
Is it not? Okay.
It's hard to choose.
I love both though. I love both.
They're both amazing.
But I mean, no.
I think I have
The
a
flaming
quote,
co-write might push Flowers over for me.
I have a quote from like Rossellini's first wife that like also worked on with him throughout his career, like on a lot of his films. Said that he said this was his favorite film throughout his life.
Which one?
Flowers.
Oh shit.
Francis.
Damn.
Then he also loved India too. So I don't know. Is there anything?
Well, I already
Just generally,
said,
that's before we get into the specific. Because I'm going to ask about the specific a little later. But is there anything generally, just overall thematically or anything that comes to your mind about these two?
I already said last week that Flowers of St. Francis reminds me of Europe 51
Yes,
a lot, or just
yes.
like an inverse completely of it, and how the world, especially like treats a man that kind of acts like this and a woman that acts like this. But really love Flowers of St. Francis. India, I just love. I love watching. I love watching India, man.
Oh, dude. I mean, that just
It's
is a
just
good way to put it,
it's just
'cause,
such an enjoyable watch.
Yes,
No,
yes. I think
Like, it's really relaxing. Like, I feel like whenever the elephants are getting washed, I feel like I'm getting washed, in the soul.
peaceful.
No, I'm gonna. Oh man, no, it's such a great scene. Like, it's one of my favorite scenes ever, honestly.
And then
I
I
mean,
feel,
fair enough.
and then that whenever he goes and bathes in that lake or sacred lake or whatever,
Yeah,
I don't know what the hell that is, but it looks amazing.
Wait, which is better, the Hatari elephant bathing scene or the one
Oh,
in
we know.
India?
We already know.
we should
Do we
One
do
of
we
them was
know?
by a great director.
Do we know?
One
Do
of
we
them was
know?
Howard Hawks.
I mean, do we know?
Howard
I don't know. It's like
We know.
it's pretty close to me.
we should
One of them is like a little too sentimental.
I mean,
like,
Hawks.
trying to play on the cuteness.
Hawks. I mean, fair enough. They're baby fucking elephants. Like, and also like honestly,
Trust
Hawks.
the image enough.
To be honest, Howard Hawks might be the best director of filming animals too. So like,
I can't. I mean,
he's kind of goated at that.
there's
among
been a
other
lot of great
things.
directors. I'm not gonna. I can't argue that now. Because what about Person?
See, you haven't seen enough Hawks yet. You don't know Ball enough.
I don't know. It seems like he's trying to treat him as a joke. He doesn't like.
Oh no,
he's not on the
loves
level as the
them.
animal.
He
Like,
loves
so-
them. He loves them.
Like, but okay, if we're just talking about a single scene though, he can't compete with this all. We're gonna talk about it later because Tag Ackwood also has a great like little review about it. Because I mean, I was gonna save it for later, but I'll just say it now. He calls it one of the great scenes of 20th century art, the elephant scene. And I had never known because that was my pin tweet for years.
What was?
Just the elephant scene because I tweeted it because I just love it, and I didn't know like he had loved it so much too. Like
Tag
it's crazy.
Ackwood.
Yeah.
I feel like that's.
I know.
Why wouldn't he like it?
I don't know, but he called it literally one of the greatest,
Okay, yeah,
great
yeah.
20th century art moments or something. Like,
Okay,
damn,
fair enough.
because I literally think of it like that because it has so many layers to it when you watch it.
Yeah.
The scene does, because you could just take it simply as just watching it, but also there's like it has Rossellini's whole idea of like man trying to make himself better,
Yeah.
like man and animal working together, and then like also the elephant getting the bath. Like it's almost like reverse. You would think, like man serving animal versus the other way around.
Well, then, I love India because that guy's entire life, he even says it, it's just like,
Yeah,
I take
yeah.
care of this elephant all fucking day,
Because
basically.
it's like the elephant only works in the morning.
Yeah.
And then like for the rest of the day, the humans.
I love
take care of
the
animal.
shot of him like feeding him the hay at night and saying like, even though the elephant only works 3 hours a day, here I am working at night because
Yeah,
we
yeah.
have to feed these elephants 250
Yeah.
of these rice things at
No,
night.
because he's
too.
like missing like the puppet
it's
show that's
insane.
going on
Yeah.
inside. Yeah. But damn, of course we're talking about that scene already. Bro.
It's a great,
I mean,
it's a great
fair
movie.
enough.
It's a great movie.
But like honestly,
general.
we'll get into my like. I have a couple topics this week, and they're a little shorter, so I wanted to do two, and they're kind of related. But the first is because it's funny when I was like trying to define how I was gonna do this one, because I had like some quotes and ideas I wanted to talk about with Rosselini. Like the person that obviously kept coming up is Bresson. And so literally like the two categories of like the two things I'm going to talk about today are literally ones exactly I titled for Bresson. Because the first one is basically I'm going to talk about the word is relation or relations. I don't know if you remember when I talked about the Bresson a little bit. Like that was a big word for him. But it's also a really big word for Rosselini too, and the idea of like what does the camera do? And like especially as we watch his later films, like how he uses his like zoom lens camera is like he sees the camera as a way to basically document the way people interact with the world around them, and he tries to film it almost from a documentary perspective like that, but
To bring it forward, like to the present day.
yes, but like I like what you said, the idea of like him flipping the documentary versus like almost like these little poetic moments or like human moments that he kind of in the zoom lens is almost perfect for that because he's like staying at a documentary, he's like kind of almost like waving the camera slowly like wherever he wants to go, and then all of a sudden he'll zoom in on a person like giving a speech.
Yeah.
That's like a really heartwarming moment, but it's not that heartwarming outside of just the camera zooming in,
Yeah.
and then he'll zoom back out slowly, and then the person will walk or something. So first, let me, because I've kind of talked about this kind of tension, and to me this is like the tension of just cinema or making art in general, but Rosselini really like emphasizes it, this idea of you want to be realistic, right? But it's also, you want to be an artist. Like, you want to be a documentary in a way, right? You want to say something true or whatever. And that's, like, almost like what people see as documentary, right? Like, true, like, you're showing something real. But at the same time, you want to be an artist. You want to show creativity. You want to have, you know, your own kind of impulses shown. Not just, you don't want to just, like, put a camera in front and just record it for, like, 10 hours and just show it. No edits or whatever, right? Like, the second you edit something, you're putting yourself into it in a way.
Yeah.
You know? And so to me, that's, like, that's the tension of all cinema, but, like, Rosselini's, like, even like, quotes, you'll find him, like, saying both things, you know? And you're like, how does that even make sense? But to me, that's almost further proof that's, like, the tension of an artist, because... First, let me read the first quote. I think I even read this a couple weeks ago, where he says, quote, "The important thing is to discover people as they are. It's the most moving thing in the world. If we look at a human being, what do we have? His intelligence, his desire to take action, and his immense weaknesses, his poverty." And so that's, like, the first thing, right? Like, he's saying, don't change the human being. You should try to discover them as they are. You know, like, that's something a documentary person might say, right? But then this next quote is almost like, in a way, you could say almost the exact, not the exact opposite, but different, where he says, quote, and this is him, this quote is taken from context where he's, like, arguing with the cinema verite people that I mentioned, where he didn't like the idea of them saying, oh, there's no director, we're just, like, recording reality as it is, you know. He didn't like that, and he's kind of reacting to them, where he's saying, quote, "I'm wondering where the verite is in cinema verite, what this verite means, what it's aiming for." And then he says, a painting is the discourse of someone who, instead of taking the path of a meticulous photographic reproduction of what he sees, makes an interpretation of it. So this is a person with a precise position and an artistic dream of his own, a personal emotion, who receives the emotion from an object and tries to reproduce it no matter what the cost, who tries, even by deforming the object that first solicited to him, to communicate it to someone else, less sensitive, less subtle, his own emotion. You see how the author enters into all this, how his choice is determined, how his language becomes the essential element of expression. And then he's talking about cinema verite. He's like, here, there's none of that. They don't want their personalities to play a part. So he's like, that idea of personality is, like, a big thing. So it's like, how do you be, like, objective, you know? Because, like, we're going to talk about Rosselini's camera as objective, you know, quote-unquote objective. But in a way, he's saying this is the exact opposite, where the artist should not be objective. He should show his personality, you know? He should insert himself into it somewhere.
The whole point of personality is being subjective.
Yes.
Being subjective.
Yeah, put yourself somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about Rossellini's films, because you start to notice both aspects of his films, you know? Like, especially, like, even just from the subjects he's picking, you know, these people we're going to start doing. You know, he's picking these, like, individuals that are kind of, like, in a way trying to change their own worldview, their own society, you know, even if they're being have rejections against them.
Yeah.
In a way, you could say they're trying to change the relation of themselves to the world around them. I'm going to use that word relation again. So let me mention a couple other people that kind of, at least to me, have the same kind of idea. So first, I've mentioned the painter Matisse. Apparently, Rivet wrote, like, in one of his reviews, I think it was Voyage in Italy, but it's one of his Bergman reviews where he compares Rossellini to Matisse. And Tad Gallagher mentions how Rossellini always loved that. Even for the rest of his career, you can always see him, like, talking about Matisse and comparing himself to Matisse. Yeah. Matisse is known as for, like, this painter who's, like, basically very simple in a way. Like, when you first look at his paintings, like, they're very simple lines, you know, not a lot of lines, and the colors really stand out. Yeah. But this quote he has is, quote, "I do not paint things, but the relationship between them." So, I mean, that's something Rossellini might say too. It's like he's trying to paint the relationship between people and things, you know, not necessarily just a single person, you know, or like I said last week with the Voyage in Italy, like the relationship between the foreground or the people in the movie and then the background, which is the environment, you know, the relationship between the two. And then I also mentioned this because I was going back and looking at my Bresson notes. Bresson has, of course, a quote that's, like, perfect for this too, where he says, quote, "To create is not to deform or invent persons and things. Is to tie new relationships between persons and things which are as they are," which is like, damn, that's exactly kind of what Rossellini was saying too. And then this is where I got the idea for this week's episode, is this film critic named Alain Bergala, where he says, quote, "The essence of Rossellini's genius and the constant focus of his inquiry lies in his camera's exploration of the enigmatic rapport between people in the world. how people relate to landscape, to each other, to the transcendent. And then, I mean, that kind of self-explanatory right there, like how people relate to the things around them. And that's what I love doing. You asked me before the podcast because I just watched The Age of Medici.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to do it, but like that's a great example of this too. Like, that's why he loved the Renaissance so much. Like, all these people, he saw like us like with such hope. They were trying to like find new ways to relate to the world around them. You know, through art, through science, in a way combining the two. You know. Yeah. And then because I was going through the Bresson notes again, this is that like experimental filmmaker Bruce Elder, that I haven't watched any of his films, but he had that like great review on like he had a couple essays on Bresson, and this is a quote about Bresson, but it like applies exactly to Rosselini too. So I'm gonna read it, where he says, "Quote: The senses reveal what the mind, unillumined from above, cannot know. So the filmmaker turns his attention to the precise look of things. He does so not in order to apprehend them in themselves. Instead, he strives to grasp the relationship between things. In a word, their co-naturality." And yeah, that's exactly what I would say. Because like, that, especially that last line where he says like, he doesn't try to apprehend things in themselves, but just the relationship between them. Yeah. That's why I love like Rossini's characters. It's like it's the same way with Bresson. Is you really feel like you never know for sure what they're feeling, you know. But the way we're supposed to get what they're feeling is through how they're interacting with the world around them, you know, like how they're talking to people. In Rossini's case, they talk a lot more, but
like you're saying like they're more of like a blank slate, or like
I think so. Like they're very open to interpretation, especially certain people. Like we're never getting if we feel like we feel an inner feeling of a person, it's like us like putting their inner feeling into them, you know. Yeah. And then. I guess the way like Rivette has this quote where, because I was going to mention like, so I'm talking about like how Rossellini relates people to the world around them, you know, and in a way that's what you call Rossellini's realism, you know, or his neorealism. And Rivette has a good quote of like what that would be. Let me read the first where it kind of makes sense. He says, quote: "To come to an understanding on the meaning of the word realism, which is neither a script writing technique nor a style of mise-en-scène, but a state of mind. That is, a straight line is the shortest distance between 2 points." I love that because like there's like such a efficiency with Rossellini's movies too, where like certain cuts will just like it's like I guess efficiency is the word I put it, where he just gets straight to the point, you know, like he's showing like a lot of big moments, and like all of a sudden a character will say we're going somewhere else, and he just cuts right away to that new scene or whatever, stuff like that. Yeah. But yeah, the idea of like realism being just a state of mind is, you know, I mentioned that last week, the idea of like Rossellini's personal neorealism, but like I think that's a really good way to put it too. And then before I get to my second topic, it kind of leads to the second topic, but I want to read Rossellini's quote because I mentioned it last week, but I actually didn't read the whole thing. Where he kind of mentions, it kind of goes on the same thing where he says, quote: "With no other director is it so difficult to distinguish content from expression. It is because he never tries to be symbolic that Rossellini's art is immediately profoundly symbolic. That this document," and he's talking about the Bergman, I think he's talking about Stromboli actually, he says, "that this documentary on a woman's suffering can be considered. Theatrical staging only has the possibility of upholstering the text better, whereas Rossellini cinema helps us assume a distance from the text. The greater our initial pain is at first participating, the greater will be our ultimate bond. But what mystery occurs this sort of reversal that every Rossellini spectator has experienced at least once? I do not yet feel close to figuring it out, but everything leads me to think that the respect he observes not only for things as they are, but for time and its exact, undifferentiated duration has something to do with it. The search for continuity, which for some is only aesthetic choice, with him put forward as an ethical choice." And basically what he's saying there is like when he says an aesthetic choice for him becomes an ethical choice, like well, that's what Rossellini was saying. Like for him, he starts with the neorealism as a personal moral position, and then because of that personal position, almost the way he films the world takes on that same kind of way. You know, it's like the idea and the way he films is like the same thing. It's like what he says where with Rossellini it becomes so difficult to distinguish between content from expression. You know, like what is being said and how it's being said, or like the same thing in a way, you know, like what he's showing and how the camera's showing it, like I mentioned this with Ozu too, where it feels like the same thing, where you can't like distinguish an Ozu movie. Like you can talk about the subject all you want, you know, Ozu's films are about this or this or this, but unless you're watching the film, you really can't understand what an Ozu film's actually about, because it's like not only about the subject, it's about the way the subject's being told. You know, in this kind of, you know, in Ozu's case, it's like almost like straight, like it's almost too straightforward for us, but it's like peaceful straightforward. You know, even when the subject matter's tough. Like Rosselini is different. His is like. It's objective in a certain level, but then he clearly has so much love for all these people in a certain way, but he's like, he wants you to experience that love yourself, you know, he doesn't want to give it to you right away. And so, especially that last line I just said, he doesn't want to give it to you all the way, leads to me to my my second topic, which is also very Bresson related, and you'll see why is, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, because we're definitely going to start seeing in these later movies, the acting style in Bresson's, in Rossellini's movies is very just...
Or the lack of acting.
Exactly. You can see why I'm bringing Bresson up. They're basically models. Like Jerry, the guy me and Luke actually know him on Letterboxd.
Yeah.
His the Age of the Medici review, he says the acting style is more extreme than anything Bresson.
Oh, you're more radical than
something like that. I'm like, I read that after I was like already prepared. It's like, damn, I kind of agree, because like, it's just hard not to, especially, I'm going to read just some quotes, like, if you're an actor listening to this right now, you might want to close your ears, because like, because like,
at this point, if they've been following the podcast, they know.
Yeah, no.
You hate actors, we all know that.
But I'm going to give at least some reasoning why. Yeah. Like why, and it's like, and a lot of this stuff will apply to why Bresson, in my opinion, why Bresson does it too. So first, let me read what Tad Gallagher says. And he's talking about, when I say on the set, he's talking about Pascal. But let me read what he says first. Quote, on the set, filming mostly in French, Roberto paid little attention to how actors said their lines, which often frustrated them, but much attention to how the actors moved, particularly in matters pertaining to details of period behavior different from our own. As always, Rosselini stressed the physiognomic qualities in the actor that coincided with the interpretation of the character that Rosselini wanted to present. Rosselini's method with actors, far from being the global phenomenology described by Eiffer and Bresson and Bazin, is pure Murnau, the most stylized form of Germanic expressionism, in which the filmmaker's psychoanalysis of the characters is expressed by body posture, gesture, music, lighting, and scenery. And basically what he's saying is like, instead of the director using the actor's expressions to express what he wants, he's using the actor's body postures, which you'll notice in Rossellini. Like when a character starts giving a long speech, they'll have like a very specific posture. They almost like hold the whole time. Yeah. And he's like it's almost like a painting. He's like trying to emphasize this.
It's like they're locked in a suit of armor and can't move.
Okay, I mean,
I love that.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, the flower scene.
Yeah.
Honestly. That's funny. I was gonna bring that up later, but I'll bring it up now. Rossellini says like they didn't even have armor like that at the time, and they
doesn't look like they did.
They made it up specifically for just like kind of the poetic effect of that scene, obviously, as we'll get to. But see, that's a good example of what I'm saying. Like that's not the actual actor doing anything. That's like using, like I said, the mise en scène to express the filmmaker's, like he says, the filmmaker's psychoanalysis. And that's why he doesn't want the actor to have too much control, because he's almost using them the same way he's using the lighting. You know, like a way a body's positioned in the scene is the same way you would use the lighting, or like he says, the music, or the scenery. But you could see why that would annoy an actor that wants to have control over, like, okay, this is my character, you know, like, and they try to get into it, and then like they want more freedom to do it on the set. Rossellini's like, no, like, your character's like, you stand in a certain position, you know, you move your arm a certain way when you're saying this part, and then you like give this long ass speech you probably don't have memorized, or it's probably gonna be dubbed after anyway. Like, so like I have some kind of questions, and I'm gonna like answer them too, because like, so first, how does Rossellini choose an actor? And then let me read the quote. For my cast, and he's talking about Germany years ago, he says, for my cast, I roamed the streets of Berlin looking for satisfactory physical types. Most of my players had never acted before, but anyone can act provided he is in familiar surroundings and given lines that are natural. So basically, he only, for the most part, how he's choosing people is just by their physical type. Yeah. You know, he's like, he has a certain image of his head as like, this is what Socrates looks like, or this is what Pascal is going to look like in my movie. Yeah. And he tries to find a face that can do that, you know? Yeah. So like, that's like almost, you could say, like, in a way, a casting director does that, but they're supposed to also care about, can they act? whatever that means. Rossellini's like, I'll make them act, like I'll create it.
I'll make them act.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Exactly. That's a good point. Because you saying that, act. Let's see what Rossellini says about what acting is then for an actor. He says, quote, "I choose actors solely for their physique. You can choose anyone off the street, but when he finds himself in front of the camera, he's completely lost and will try to play. It's this that must be absolutely avoided. This man has gestures, always the same, but with the same muscles at work in front of the camera, he gets paralyzed, forgets himself, so much that he doesn't even recognize himself. He thinks he's become an exceptional being because he's going to be filmed. My work is to put him back into his real nature, to reconstruct him, to reteach his habitual gestures." That's literally something Rossellini would say, like, exactly, right? Like, that's what he doesn't like actors, like, because they're like, oh, they're in front of a camera, they have to be someone else, It's like, in a way, he's like trying to cast people that are, not only for their physical types, but where they move too, which is something he would consider part of the physical type.
This is why Psy found Li Kongsheng and just was like, I'm just going to keep you.
Well, he found an actor honestly, that's a good point, because he uses him very similar ways.
He uses him as a model, literally.
Yes. But it's hard to find an actor that's willing to do that.
Yeah.
Like, that's why, I've quoted this a bunch on the podcast, but Shishu quote where he said, Ozutami had an empty page. Mm-hmm. It's like, most actors don't want to do that. They don't want to be an empty page, They're being told they're the reason people are coming to the movie. So why would they do that? So I kind of already answered this question, but the question I'm going to ask is, what does a non-actor then provide? And Rosselini says, if you want to work with non-actors, you have to invent what a non-actor can give you. What he can give you is physical presence, certain kinds of movement, no more than he's used to doing. If you study him a little and you give him the occasion to do those kind of things, he becomes a very good actor. Otherwise, no. That last line too. But this is my favorite part, because I think this is really what he's going for, and I think where I really agree with him in terms of why non-actors are important to him. First of all, they're willing to probably be molded a little more into this kind of overall mise-en-scène he's trying to build in his film. And the word I would use also is rhythm, and you'll see why after I read this quote, where he says, if you use the non-actor's attitude in a contrary situation for that attitude immediately becomes dramatic. If you use his way of being so immobile, and you make him a character who's tremendously violent, you have a character. Many qualities must be played in contrast. Dramaturgy is a way of finding conflicts. To get realism, you need tricks. Otherwise, you never get the reality. Feeling and acting are never real. If you depend on them, it's impossible to get the real thing. If you have somebody facing the camera, and then he has to appear moved, that's difficult. But if he's turned slightly away from the camera, and lowers his eyes a little and turns, it's a great emotion. Only that great emotion is nothing at all. Perhaps I need an emotion from a character, but I don't need his emotion. I can build an emotion. If you have someone move or talk very slowly and then suddenly accelerate, you have an emotion. It's mathematical, change of rhythm. Immediately you have an emotion. And so, to me, what he's trying to say is, and this is something also Brissonian, is if you're trying to build the overall rhythm of a film, and that's how you create emotion, you have to almost have, the same way you would use a lighting in a certain scene to create emotion. You kind of have to have the movements of the actors in the same kind of way, if you're trying to build an overall emotion. And I like that part where he says drama is a way of building contrast. So if you have a non-actor, or if you have a body basically, and you can tell he's kind of a timid body, and all of a sudden you put him in a role where he has to be extremely violent. And I'm mentioning these kind of characters on purpose because we're doing King Louis next week, and he mentions specifically about that character where he cast this non-actor, and you'll see why. He kind of looks like a baby kind of character, he's been babied, and early on in the movie you see why. But then over the course of the movie, you see him becoming taking power, and just that tension alone makes you feel there's a growth there.
No, that's really interesting because it's an idea I've seen Rivette play with, where in a sense the body is almost the movement, the choreography of bodies kind of become the mise-en-scène in a way.
Oh yes.
Rivette loves this idea, which I'm curious now that if he took it from Rossellini at all.
I mean, I'm sure he did.
Oh damn.
Or they both took it from her now.
Yeah, that too.
What Tal Gallagher's saying. Yeah. So this one is kind of funny, but also Tal Gallagher. My question I asked is, should the actor be involved? And then Rosselini says, quote, no. Why does the player have to be involved, poor thing? If he gets involved, he suffers all the time. He must not be involved at all. He has only to be capable enough to attract our attention.
Damn.
And then Tad Gallagher says, actors often felt humiliated by Roberto. There would be real crises. He kept stopping them if they tried to recite or invest themselves in their part. He insisted they be themselves, which is almost impossible. An actor wants to play a role. Move around the way you do at home, he would tell them, and they wouldn't know what to do.
So that's why George Sanders hated him.
Yes, exactly. Yes. But this is actually, because I don't want to make it sound like all actors just hated him, because there were certain, like, I think it was on the Mouchette, like, behind the scenes I was mentioning how, like, that actor that was in 2 of Bressant's movies, like the kind of criminal guy, in, like, Balthazar. The guy that's he's like talking about how like basically Bresson just used me, like I'm not doing any real thinking here. Bresson's the one doing all the thinking, but he like kind of understands it.
Yeah.
This kind of reminds me of that. Where this is the guy that plays Pascal, the main character.
Okay.
He says, quote, Rosselini told me he can make a chair act, and I'm a chair in the film, a good chair, but a chair all the same. I never had any power over what I was doing. He controlled me like a guinea pig to whom one says go right, go left. I went right, left. I put my hand like this. At the moment of the memoir, the discovery of God, my hand had to go down like this, and then my head falls like this, and then I had to fall down because I finally had the revelation of God. It's the most successful scene of the film, but I had no voice in it. He based all his work on the style of gesture that was so precise that it ended up giving you the inner feelings. Right. And yeah, that kind of goes exactly what I'm saying. Like, the actor kind of has to understand, like, and honestly, like, I'm going to read this Monte Carlo quote in a second, but the actor kind of has to roll, like, you shouldn't take this as an insult, but a filmmaker is trying to create a certain like feeling of mise-en-scène in a way, you know, of environment. And most times, like I've said, the foreground and the background are really distinct. Like if you watch a lot of like just like Netflix flop or something, you'll see like on purpose the characters will be in foreground and then everything else is blurred in the background, just like because of like how long the lenses are, and just like they're doing it on purpose. They don't want you to see anything around you because it's like so ugly. Or like they're not even focused on it. But like Rosselini, he's not doing that, you know. He's almost doing the exact opposite. Like the people in the foreground actually are not that much in focus usually. Like he doesn't care about the details much, versus like showing you the whole kind of world he's built, even if it looks a little fake on the surface, you know. Trying to make like the environment and the people kind of one. But I've always thought about this quote from Monte Carlo where he says, let me just because the Pascal actor says. He said that I can even make a chair act, and it's so funny because like Monte Carlo says something really similar where he says, quote, I tell an actor also to treat a word like you would treat a chair, or treat the chair with the same significance as I treat this word. A word is also something you are relating to. A chair also, when you sit on it, is something that you relate to. There's no difference between the two. The word and the chair. It doesn't make the word less, it only makes the chair more. I told an actress that there's no difference between your face and a tree for me. I said your face is like a landscape and so is the tree. But she thought I was trying to reduce her to a tree. I said on the contrary, I'm trying to look at a tree the way I look at you. Then she was pleased. I think you'll realize that my films happen like that. I'm like, damn. That's like I think Rosselini would agree with that quote too. This idea of like I said, trying to make the world. It's almost like the Bergman films are almost like people struggling with that realization. You know, they're trying to fight that of like trying to become one with the world. You know, trying to relate to it, as I mentioned earlier. But to me, that's why the acting almost plays a role in that. You know, you can't have like a actor doing almost their own thing outside of the overall rhythm of the film in a way, you know. But yeah, I guess that's basically all I have before. I don't know. What do you guys think? Like Rosselini's acting is, I think Bressant's is more stylized. You notice it. You know, this kind of like modelistic way he uses gestures and
well, as you kind of said, Rosselini, it kind of blends in with. He's still blending it in with the environment, and like they still are kind of like they're not as nearly as monotone as Bresson. I feel like a lot of times he still has kind of these like
grand moments.
Yeah, these like they'll have these speeches or whatever. There's be some kind of inflection with it. Which is interesting.
But still, those are that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up because it's actually my.
But it doesn't feel like acting still, though.
No.
Like,
and even if they feel heightened, they're never heightened compared to like an actual real movie.
Yes,
where, like,
yeah.
It's still very low key. Like
I think a big part of that is his camera, as you were saying.
Yeah, so
too.
just like if you're noticing, like Blake said, if you're paying
away.
attention, you start to notice like where the air starts to form.
Yeah,
like
it's the camera, and it's also the moments whenever they happen. Because like in St. Francis, like whenever he just meets the leper in the woods, like that's just a magical moment that has emotion in it, just because it's like just this random like act of God almost. Like
that's like my favorite vignette in the movie.
It's
it's one of my favorites too. It's like so dark too.
Like, yeah, it's just like,
that's what I'm saying. The lighting,
but like there's no dialogue. You get everything through just his movement and motions, and like it's amazing. Because the guy that plays Francis, I love him a lot because he has just these hand motions that just get you all the time, just covering his face.
That part.
Like,
you could say, I'm pretty sure that's why he cast him.
Yeah,
like the way he looks doing that or something.
It's like a Bresson. Like it feels like something out of Bresson movie. Like
the hands. Like yes. No, you'll notice a lot. For these future movies, notice how characters use their hands because like it's more like stylized too in a way. But like I was just noticing watching The Age of Medici, like one of the main characters' name is Alberti. Like every time he's giving a speech, he has his hand in like a different weird way. Like if you look at the screenshots I post on my Twitter, you'll see like I posted some screenshots of him giving speeches, like some of the dialogue, and everyone has this like very, you can tell like Rosselini went and told him like this is how you're gonna keep your hand like the whole time you're giving the speech, you know. And that's why to me it almost becomes like painterly like that, you know, like. Yeah, like a painting come to life. Like here's the whole speech being given while this guy's like giving this one in this one position, and it's like it's usually more wide shot to where like you can see the environment and the people listening to, you know. Yeah. But before I get to the movies, this is the one thing I do want to say because this also related to the acting of. We did mention how Rossini will have these moments of like he wants you to pay attention. You know, maybe he's a little more like you said. It's not just purely objective. He's like trying to. Maybe he's a little more stylized than Bresson in terms of like the acting becomes a little more expressionistic. But this was from one of the earlier movies. I forget which one it was. Where his like producer, his name is Sergei Amati, where they were kind of arguing about basically interpretation using acting, because this is how a lot of times acting is used, where the actor will either say something or express something a certain way, and that's how we get our interpretation of how we're supposed to feel as a viewer, you know. So let me read what Gallagher says, where he says, quote, Amadei objected that audiences wouldn't understand, that scenes required editing in order to form for the correct interpretation to come through. Rosselini retorted that he didn't want to interpret it. The audiences should be free to interpret for themselves if they wanted to. Someone else objected that no, audiences didn't want to interpret it. They wanted to be entertained. Long takes are dramatically flat and boring and require work from audiences. Rosselini replied that there was no point in making films if they all had to follow the same formula, that people had been led around by their noses for years by fascism, and that now it was time to reject all of that and find fresh new ways of saying things. Especially that line of like he wants you to almost edit the film in yourself with these long takes, with these zoom lenses, you know, like he's never cutting to a scene. Like he rarely cuts to like, okay, now here's the important speech coming, you know. It's more like a slow zoom as the character starts giving the speech or something like that. So yeah, like that's why another thing, like the acting won't give it away of, oh, here's an important moment coming, you know, or like here's a big speech coming. Like sometimes the most important part of like a speech will come in the very middle of it or something, and you have to like be paying attention. I'm thinking more of the historical movies when I'm thinking of them, because like with these two, it's almost like every moment it kind of is like, because they're episodic, it's like Rossellini's trying to say like something different in almost like every scene. Maybe like.
But even that scene that we were just talking about in the woods, if you were just looking at your phone, because and you would miss that entire vignette basically because it's so short. Yes. Like, I
mean, I'm glad you said pick up your looking at your phone, because I was going to even mention like the acting, like just this is like lowest common denominator stuff, but like the acting won't give away like in a typical movie if you are on your phone and that scene happened. Yeah, Francis might start crying really loudly. You know, he's like, oh, there's a lot. You know, something dramatic might happen for you to be like, oh shit, here's the moment with the dramatic leper or something. But it just happens so like it's very quiet. There's a bell. But like, all you hear is all you hear is a bell, but the bell is so menacing. Yeah, like not menacing. It's the wrong word. It's more like depressing.
Yeah,
and then how
it's like a lone bell in the dark.
Yeah. And then like how dark the scene is too compared to the rest of the movie is like it's really noticeable. But yeah, Honestly, this might Flowers. We can just honestly move on to Flowers because Flowers might have, at least in terms of Rossellini's acting, like the most expressionistic stuff in his films. You know, like
It has a lot.
the most comedic stuff.
Yes.
To me, it's like the most Fellini stuff, like the most Fellini influence.
Flowers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he
Yeah.
co-wrote it, but yeah.
Yeah, because let me read first like how they even wrote the script because it was Fellini influenced a lot. Where he says this is what Tag Gallagher says that Roberto with Fellini they put together a treatment consisting of 71 lines of dialogue on 28 pages drawn from the Fioretti, which is quote Little Flowers or inspirational stories of like the flowers of Saint Francis, and then other like Franciscan legends at the time. Notably, another I guess. I don't know if this is a book, but I guess there's another kind of book called The Life of Brother Junipero that also has stories of Brother Junipero, and I mentioned that because he's probably more in the movie than Francis is.
Yeah, he's a...
Which is like a Rossellini, he's kind of made that point too. But, and then he says Fellini then made the initial selections among all the anecdotes they had chosen. So basically, like, Fellini chose all the anecdotes they were going to film, and then out of those, they chose 11 or 12.
Well, even just by the episodic nature, too, it was very Fellini.
It's very yes.
He loved like the episodic stuff.
Yes. That way of like getting, and then also like I just wanted to mention the time. Like the time is so short between this in this movie of like he says it's the short period between Francis when he's returning from Rome after he'd received the Pope's blessing, and then following like as we see at the very end when the followers actually disperse. So it's like actually not that long of a time frame. We just see almost these like random stories between this like short period in Francis's life. And Rossellini even says, quote, I didn't intend for a moment to make a biographical film. The personality of St. Francis is so immense that it would be impossible to do him justice within the framework of a film of normal length. That is why I confined myself to a single aspect of his personality. Quote, the Jester of God. The accent is entirely on St. Francis' whimsical, unruffled approach to the crudities and trivialities of daily life. And that's what I love about the movie, because like it's not trying to be like an actual biographical film. You know, it's like it's more almost like using St. Francis to kind of show this attitude towards life. You know, this kind of like he says whimsical approach.
It almost just feels like reasons to live in a way, or just like lessons on life, really.
Okay. I guess before going, let me ask you guys now specifically. Keep going. You already.
It's just like each story is like a different kind of like I don't know, like almost like instructions on like how to treat people or just like live life in general, which I guess is a big part of like I don't know a lot about like Saint Francis or any of this, but like that seemed like a big part of what he was doing, literally. Like,
so what do you think? Because I think you're right. This obviously, like I've said, Rossellini movies are trying to about people trying to figure out ways to live life. You know, almost like trying to create, like he would say, a new position from the of the world.
Yeah.
A way to change the world in a way. So why do you think he chose? Because that's kind of what you're saying. A way to live life. What do you think about Francis? Why? Like, why do you choose Francis?
Because I think
what kind of do the stories have any commonalities? Like,
well, I don't know enough about. I don't know if I know enough about.
I'm just saying, based what you saw.
Like,
what do you say?
Well, this is kind of what he does, though. He does teach people. He's a teacher of Christ, or
maybe I guess how he would say like how Christ wants us to live.
Yeah, like in a sense, framing it through Saint Francis is a good thing to do because he is like more of like a, as I said, like a teacher of these things, but.
Because I guess like the way the way I would think of it is like what Francis is teaching us. I do think he's trying to teach us a way to live. It's a certain kind of like and I mentioned it already with that Rosselini quote, but it's a certain kind of the Jester of God, that whimsical approach to life, like not taking life too seriously in a way. You know, like that's the only way Francis is able to live like this kind of life. Yeah. You know, like they all live in like the same hut, or like It's honestly very like it's honestly not even a real world in a way, like the way they all kind of live together. I don't know, like that's why I say it's like the most Fellini influence, because it feels kind of like dreamlike in a way.
Especially like the one with the pig's foot.
Yes, no, there's certain stories like that.
It's like, wait, what?
Yeah, he's like that.
It'll continue surviving. Like it'll keep going on.
No, but Blake, what about you? I know you've already.
No, yeah. I mean, I love Flowers of St. Francis. One of the reasons he might have chosen St. Francis is honestly because he came from a rich family as well. kind of like the woman Year of 51.
Mm-hmm.
So like he
St.
had,
Francis did?
yeah.
Yes, yes.
So he had something that he actually did give up to live this life. So that might be another reason he might have chosen St. Francis particularly. But I love this movie because it's also just like, it's literally just watching a tree bear fruit, or like what a tree like bears. Like it's literally like the flowers of St. Francis is the flowers of this like tree that they all like cut down in one of those, the scene with St. Clair or whatever.
Yes, yeah.
Like that's what it makes you think of, like, or what it makes me think of at least. Like he's living his life this way to be an example for all the people that he follows, so that they can propagate themselves out into the world to actually teach people how to live the right way, basically, or the way that he thinks is right, like this Christian way. And I love like that, like, because all these stories are just showing him somewhat, but more so his followers and how they act in these situations. Because especially in like that, it's hard to choose a favorite scene. I love the scene where Dnipro goes to the basically his execution or whatever, like the gallows, like he gets judged at the gallows, because like it's that entire scene is basically just Dnipro being Francis, essentially, like showing them Francis's love, and then that actually changing the world almost, or at least this little part of the world, like this little part of his world. So I don't know. And you said something about like the eyes being the window to the soul last week, and that scene specifically has just like, that's what changes the guy's mind, is just staring into his eyes as he like throws them around.
I mean, that's
like,
another example. If there's no talking, just two people just like looking at each other, having a moment.
Yeah, it's great. I love Flowers of St. Francis.
I'm just gonna go through a few things that I loved about the movie. It's not like too structured, just some of the stuff I haven't noticed. Like the first thing that really stands out to me is, and this is something Tag Gallagher points a lot to, is like basically the kind of simplicity of the movie. Yeah. Like it's almost like that's his Francis ideal in a way, and that's obviously Rosselini's too. Like I mentioned, like that quote earlier that Rivette says about Rosselini's realism is the shortest distance between 2 points. You know, like that kind of just simplicity, showing only what's essential in a way. At least thinking about that, like to me, that's also what Francis seems to be, like the way he lives his life. You know, like he seems happy with that kind of simplicity of approach to life. You know, like Blake said, he's someone who gave up his world, his worldly life where he had money. I think characters even talk about
the character talks about it. Yeah.
Like he's famous for that. Yeah. And because Rossellini mentions this simplicity of calling, or innocence in a way. Let me just read his quote, because he says, quote, simplicity seemed to me then, and still does today, a truly awesome weapon. Innocence will always confound evil. I'm absolutely convinced of this. In the Fioretti, what interests and moves me is to find a man who certainly isn't a nitwit, but who had the courage to be humbly a man, with all his weaknesses. And especially that first line where he says, innocence will always confound evil. I'm absolutely convinced of this. Like, to me, that's the line. That's like what describes that scene Blake was describing with that general guy. Yeah, is like he's just staring at him. He's like, he doesn't understand. Like he just doesn't understand Dnipro at all.
He doesn't.
But yeah, because this is also a great quote. Tag Gallagher, he says, and I think this describes the whole movie too, in like the tension where he says, quote, they take their foolishness seriously, as Rosselini's heroes do. Self-mastery is their goal. That, especially that line, they take their foolishness seriously, like it plays both parts. Like it's like saying two things at once. Like they don't take themselves seriously, but they take that seriously. The idea of not taking yourself seriously. If that makes sense. You know, and that to me, like how Francis is in the way.
It's like whenever Dnipro is like, he comes back without his coat a second time, and he's like, "Well, Francis said I couldn't give it to him, so I just told the beggar I wanted to be opposed if you took this tunic off my back." Like not taking yourself too seriously, obviously.
No, like even when
they take it seriously.
Mistakes,
they take it seriously.
No, like that's why I love the way he handles Dnipro like multiple times. Yes. Like what he has him do is actually kind of a serious thing, where he's like, you're not allowed to say anything except for these lines, and then you're gonna go like experience this stuff basically. But like, it's like he does it in like a loving way. I don't know. It's like it's a great, it's kind of those both things in a way. And I guess like a word I would use to describe those two that contrast is juxtaposition, and that's what Tag Gallagher says, where he says the juxtapositions are at the heart of Franciscanism and at the film, where he says, let me just read his whole thing, where he says, quote, "Not only are there no miracles, but devotional moments are juxtaposed with comic ones, contemplation with action, beatitudes with madcap charity, aesthetics with ethics. The juxtapositions get to the heart of Franciscanism. The institutionalized church would relegate Junipero, who gives away his cloak and makes soup for 15 days, to servility within his organization. But Francis sends him forth to preach because of his fervor. The Franciscans reject institutions, sensing the contradiction between material concerns and apostolic missions. The hut they live in, for example, is no sooner sanctified by Claire's visit than it is abandoned for itinerant preaching." Which just that idea of the juxtaposing comic scenes with contemplation with action, beatitudes with charity, and then that last line, aesthetic ethics, is like that's why the movie feels so, like you said, so easy to watch, but then it feels so moving at the same time. It's like it has all of it,
With
you know,
and the full gamut of human emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I kind of want to mention, Rosselini said to go with this idea of simplicity and innocence. Is Rosselini mentioned, like, while he was there, like, filming the scene, he talked to one of the monks there, and he said, let me just read what Rosselini said. He said, "The guy said he was a poet. I asked what kind of poetry he was doing. He said, I wrote a poem about a rose. I asked him to tell it to me. He closed his eyes, lifted his face toward the sky, and he said, 'Oh, rose.' And that was the whole poem. How can you have a better poem than that?" He's like, how can you have a better poem than that? It was also a sign of tremendous humility. Yeah. And then I kind of mentioned this this kind of idea of, like, why Rosselini chooses his heroes, this idea of people that he believed try to change the conception of the way they see the world. And he says this about St. Francis. He says, quote, "St. Francis called himself a jester, a clown, a juggler, because he wanted to make fun of all sorts of pride. Because the main point was that from a very humble position, you can face everything, and you can revise the whole conception of the universe." I just love that. That whole quote just kind of personifies Francis in the whole movie, too, is this idea of, like, yeah, like, Rosselini really believed, like, to actually change your conception of the universe, you actually have to be from a humble position. It can't be from the other way around, you know. And to me, like, Francis is really an ideal of that. And then I've also thought about, like, Blake already kind of mentions the idea of, like, this idea of, like, creating followers and then, like, them having dispersed, because that's also Acts of the Apostles. So I know Rosselini, like, was definitely thinking about this movie in a way, like, that same kind of idea of, like, having such a fervor for learning some truth that you want to go and spread it everywhere, you know, and, like, that idea of that being more powerful than even just, like, your daily life in a way. But yeah, like, I don't know, like, Luke said it's a way for how to live. I agree. At the end of the day, it is, like, at least that attitude, like, because obviously, like, in terms of actually how to live, like, it's not practical and all this stuff.
Yeah.
That's why it's more like poetry to me.
Yeah.
But in terms of how to live, you're right. In terms of, like, maybe inner way to live, like how to approach life.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
like that attitude towards life. But before we go to the movies, I wanted to read some. At least a couple of what other people thought of this movie, because, like, first apparently Pasolini said of the father's Francis, he said, "Among the most beautiful films in Italian cinema." Truffaut called it the most beautiful film in the world. And I don't know when Andrew Sayers put this, but he apparently had his 8th on his all-time best list at some point.
Andrew Sayers.
But then there's also some people that I wanted to mention that go a little further in detail. Okay, first Bazin has a great quote about the movie where he says, quote, "His characters behave as though obsessed by the demon of movement. The little brothers of Francis of Assisi have no other way of rendering glory to God than the foot race." Which is, like, honestly just a funny way to say that. But and then this last quote I wanted to read from actually, I won't read it, it's too long. But anyway, okay. I'll read a different guy, because
Who was it? Did you see it?
this guy is named Gian Rondi, and he has 2 quotes. I'll read the shorter one, because he mentions, Rosselini says India is where he starts to get really experimental with his films.
Yeah.
But this is also, obviously I picked these 2 together because you see this kind of episodic nature of this one as well. And this guy, Brunello Rondi, says, this is where, let me just read the quote. He says, this is Taggart talking about Brunello Rondi. He says, "Brunello Rondi saw Francesco Sparseness as initiating an anti-novel narrative in favor of interior irrational fragments. He calls it a new, quote, atonal cinema. Its narrative, like atonal music, is freer, more abstract, more given over to pure gestures. It lacks an irresistible movement towards initially posed goals. He concludes that Francesco, although its imitators all deal with anguish and alienation, is the first movie to explore the irrationality of the new cinema. And he says, like, this is like a... He goes on later and talks about how, like, this new cinema also, like, basically is where we get, like, Godard's films and this kind of a new wave. Basically, that's the kind of the 50s and 60s cinema. This kind of idea of, like, okay, we can film, like, the episodes and fragments first, and then, like, almost... Honestly, the connection doesn't even have to come from us directly. Yeah. You know, like, if we remember when we talked about Godard, is like, a lot of that is a similar way, you know.
Fragments.
Like, the fragments come first, and then the viewer puts them together. Yeah. And that's how we just talked about Francis, and we're going to talk about India the exact same way. So I thought I would mention that, too. But, yeah. I think I'm ready to go into it now. Yeah, it starts with this long prayer. It must be a quote from St. Francis, where he's like praying to the sun. He's basically praying like, it's weird. It's almost like pantheistic in a way, because he's like praying to like brother sun, brother fire, brother water and stuff. But then I didn't write the whole prayer down, but he does then quote. There's like a title card that comes up with the 1 Corinthians quote from St. Paul, which goes to what I was saying, what I believe like the main theme of the movie was, where he quotes, the film quotes, quote, God shows the foolish things of this world to humiliate the learned, the weak to humiliate the strong. Like, that's like a perfect entry to this movie. Because like then the first quote of the actual movie, it says, he became a child in order to become worthy of the kingdom of heaven. And it shows, like, it's, like, rainy. It's, like, pouring rain, and we see, like, all the monks, like, walking from the distance on the road. That is one thing about this movie I love, is, like, how much walking there is.
There is a lot of walking.
It's going to start along, like, it depends on the movie, but there's a lot of walking in raw scenes.
I also love how much he incorporates the sky into a lot of his shots. And he even ends on it, too, which I know you're probably like, oh, yeah.
Well, we're going to talk about, maybe I'll have to quiz you, what's Rossellini's best cloud shot?
In this movie, or just in general?
He has a few cloud shots in his movies.
I'm trying to think of, like, what have we talked about so far? Like, what cloud shots have so far?
Because there's some in India, but there's... The main one I'm actually thinking was the Messiah.
Oh, okay.
He also ends it the exact same way. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Okay, yeah.
No, it's great. But, no, we see them talking, and this is another thing, like Blake said, and we both mentioned how this movie is more about the followers than him, too.
Yeah.
It's like the inspiration's already started in a way, the same way, like, Acts of Apostles. Yeah, like that. But, because the way they enter is, we see people talking, and it's not even Francis. He, like, Francis walks past the camera, just, like, we think he's, like, another one of the people, and then, like, we see people in the back, just the followers talking, and they're talking about, like, they're having, like, discussions about, like, I think joy... If, like, joy is a true peace or something. I didn't write it all down. And they're talking about, like, how they should spread their divine knowledge and stuff. But then they all go... then we finally see them, like, after they start talking, and they run to catch up. And then we realize Francis is, like, the shorter one, like, waiting for them and stuff. I think it's and then as they're running to him, one of them says because there's so many just little quotes that are like just like basically poems in a way. Because one of them says, "May all find sweetness in the struggle for it," as they're like running for him.
Yes,
which I love.
It's just outbursts of song, basically.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they might be singing too.
Well, they sing later. I'm just saying, like, these little quotes are literally just like little outbursts of songs almost that all these followers have. So
yes. That's where it's like you have to be paying attention because it's like for you outside of the narrative. It's like a poem, you know.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily for them. For them, it feels like it is too.
For them, it's just like childlike joy.
Yes. Which is honestly. But then like we see they're like searching for a house to stay in. Apparently, they come to a house that they actually built, but the guy there won't let them stay. They get kicked out still. This is not the first house they're going to get kicked out of. But they kicked out, and Francis says, "Don't you see that our hearts have reason to rejoice? It's the first time Providence has made us useful to others." like after getting out, and he says that after getting kicked out of a house that they built for them.
And the donkey
guy.
too. You can't forget about
the donkey too. Yeah, damn.
Love good donkey.
But then they arrive like at this rock, and it's just like, it's almost like I don't know how to describe it, but it's like I guess like the way like when Jesus asked the disciples when he washes his disciples' feet, something like Francis going to the extreme, like that kind of thing, where he's like he tells like one of the disciples, one of his followers, to step on his neck for his arrogance. He never says exactly why he feels arrogance. He just does it. But then like after he gets up, like one of the followers says, "The joy you see on our faces is the most beautiful answer God can give you. Now we are truly beginning to love our vocation." In a way, I guess he's just trying to be an example. This kind of humility, as we've talked about. But then I don't even think it says in episode 1 when the movie starts. I don't know. Maybe
I don't think they say episodes. They just go like they just have those titles. I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, no, it doesn't say.
Like they just say like what you're about to watch.
He his inner titles.
Because the second one says how Brother Juniper returned naked to St. Mary's of Angels, where men finished building the hut. This is where like said, there's almost like songs, like little moments as there, because like first it just cuts to them building the house, and it's like one of my favorite quotes in the movie where one of them says, "Put your heart into each stone will make you greater," as they're building it, and then we see like 2 men running with this new kind of like thing they have for the hut.
It's like that bell thing,
right?
Bell thing.
Yeah,
it's like a garland, like a bell garland.
It's like you can't believe how excited they are just for this thing to hang it in there,
and they look really excited.
It looks kind of cool.
No, yeah, and then they all crowd in just to see it and stuff. But then that's when Juniper arrives, our hero, honestly.
Our hero, yes sir.
With like no clothes. And he's like, it's just the way it's shot, dude. Like he comes out of the woods.
Oh my god.
And then like the way when he's explaining to Francis and
he like nervously walks up to him with his hands like.
When he's like, I gave the man said. The man said he needed I forgot what his exact reasoning. Oh yeah, he's like a poor man came and said he needed his tunic, and so that's why he gave it to him.
Yeah.
And so then like Francis says, "I command you not to give away your tunic."
Without my permission.
He has to command him, basically, to not give away stuff, which is kind of funny.
Which makes it whenever it happens again, it's just even funnier.
No. But honestly, it's a really sweet moment too. The first time where they put this jacket on him, and then they all like huddle around him when they like basically they enter the hut again. They start singing, and there's like this great shot of like from the outside of just like the small tiny hut, and you can hear the singing. But then we get to episode 3 where we meet a new follower coming named Giovanni. It says
the funniest man of all time.
I love the ending with Giovanni, but Giovanni the Simpleton says where he started to imitate Francis' word and gesture. But I think it actually cuts to Francis praying, if I'm right, because I have it in my notes where he says, "My Father, help me to form, with the help of my children, a new and humble people. May this new age resemble that which witnessed your Son's humility on earth. May mankind live in peace." And to me, like that line is there specifically because of that Rosselini quote I read earlier about like Francis being someone who could like change the position of the world from a humble position, like away.
Is this when he's like talking to the birds and stuff too? He's like praying. He's like
I love that shot.
This is a little before, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a little before. But we basically are there too, because I forgot why he leaves. But anyway, like the next scene is basically him at the branches.
Okay.
And that's where and I love the scene where he's like praying with the birds and stuff. Or he's like praying and he also like talks to them in the middle of them too.
Well, he's praying and basically telling the birds to like please be quiet.
It's
so cute. It's so cute.
No, I love where he's like basically like asking God for basically to be a good example. But like my favorite part though is like after as he's praying and stuff, he like starts talking to the birds. And he's like, "My little brothers, you praise God so freely because you fly through the air so pure." I'm like, damn, like, in a way, that's how I would describe him. Like, Bazin described them as the demons of. They seem to be possessed by the demon of movement or something.
Birds?
No, the followers.
Oh, like the followers.
He's like they seem to be possessed by the demon of movement. But it's like almost like he says they fly through the air so pure in this line. Like to me, that's how they feel like this whole movie is. You know, they just. there's some innocence about them, like the way they move around.
Well, it's just the beauty of just watching nature. That's how you know, like, God is.
But that's why they feel part of it.
Basically.
Yeah, they feel part of it. Like, have you seen The Hawks and the Sparrows?
Yeah.
Like, this movie must have had an influence on it.
I can see that, honestly.
It must have been, like, especially that scene with the sparrows talking and stuff. Like,
yeah.
Also a really, really great movie. But then we see Giovanni actually arrive.
I love his arrival because he's just dragging this like donkey or cow or whatever it is, and then the people come and like go like, you can't take the donkey too or the cow too.
Like he's got a vibe to him to like I don't think we're supposed to believe him at like what he says like some of the stuff because he's like well first I love that Francis doesn't even tell him he's actually Francis because the first thing he comes up to Francis he's like I want to speak to the leader and Francis says speak to me it's the same thing.
Speak to me it's the same thing.
But then like Francis obviously accepts him and stuff and he's like asking him about like his family like why are you leaving them and stuff. The guy just says he wants to be a follower of Francis. And then there's like he says I want to be a saint like Francis, and that's when Francis tells him. There's also like a little scene in between where Junipero's like making a fire, but he's like has it on low heat or something. Like he doesn't have it very big, and then
he's like cooking a stew.
It's like it's honestly like the scariest Francis looks. So it's like a low angle shot where like Francis like shot from above. He's like. Why is the fire so low or something? And he's like, Brother Fire can also do harm. And then Francis, all he says is, why do you want to harm Brother Fire?
Hey, why were you stingy with Brother Fire?
Yeah, that's what he first asks.
Yeah.
He's like, why are you stingy with Brother Fire? And then he's like, Brother Fire can also do harm. And he's like, why do you want to harm Brother Fire? Yeah. It's a weird way. He's like, just flips the question. Like, he's almost saying like, fire cannot do harm. It's only you that would do the harm, you know, in a way. But like the way it's shot, it's almost like, it's the most like, I don't want to say menacing, but it's the most kind of like, that kind of angle, the high angle, low angle shots, it's like almost like the most distinct in a way from Francis because we usually see him like the same level. But then we see the followers come up and tell Francis that St. Clair wants to meet with them, and that's what leads us to episode 4 where we get the wonderful meeting of St. Clair and St. Francis, where they're like. Honestly, this is another great. It's like the kind of preparation they're doing is just so kind of fun. Where they're all like getting excited. They're like kind of cleaning everything. Then I think they're shaving. Some of them are shaving each other. They're cooking. And there's like honestly like some of my favorite shots where like we see St. Clair just in the distance. Yeah. I love how he keeps in the distance too, where like you get it from the monk's perspective, and then we see them all like sprint towards her and like actually like in just like a single shot like coming from the other side. And that's another thing. I don't know too much about Francis's own like biography, because I don't know the background with St. Clair really. Because all they say in the movie is she comes up to him and she says so many memories, and that's basically all she says. Like,
no, I don't know any of these people.
Yeah, no, I don't know like what their background was. But they say one of them says the chapel. This is the chapel where Sister Claire devoted herself to God. So I guess that's like that's why it's a big deal. But then this is like I think this is the second time Junipero comes back without his tunic.
It is.
Yeah. And this is like it's just a great shot of like both of them sitting from above, like St. Clair and Francis, and he's like just giving his explanation.
Yes.
Because I have to read it. It's almost like a child like giving up like speaking about the devil, where he's like, I was visited once again by the devil, but he left empty-handed because I have a very simple means of driving him away. When I feel him drawing near to enter inside me, I immediately shut the door to my heart and seek shelter in holy contemplation. When he knocks on the door, I fall out from inside. I say out from inside, stay out, evil one. This inn is occupied, and there's no more room. So the devil, defeated, leaves not only me, but all the area around me. And, like, they all just, like, smile. But, there's honestly, like, it feels very, like, childish, but also feels, like, kind of serious, too. You know, like, what I've been saying. I think that this episode ends with, I don't know, is there a narrator? I think there is a narrator at some points, because it says, quote, the sky had been set ablaze by the words of Claire and Francis, inflamed with the love of God. I forgot if it's the title card, if it's actually a narrator that says that. But then we get the Junipero cuts off the foot. This one is like,
this one's
if it was filmed differently, it could be like super dark too.
Yeah.
Because it's like, he's like, telling the pig is like
he's like just talking like
talks like it's not going to affect the pig at all.
Like brother pig, please, please just give me your food.
He's like, think. No, this is my favorite line. It's like, think, brother, of the few opportunities we have to do good.
Oh my god.
That's hilarious. And I just love what he's
honestly. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just love what he says afterwards because like him and the simpleton are in on this one together because he just brings the pig's foot back and he's like, brother pig was so happy to give this pig's foot to me. He's so happy to be doing good.
Yes, it's like of course those are the two that are like no, it's kind of funny. It makes you think Juniper's a little like sinister too. You know, just a little bit. Like, because he can't, come on, you're like,
well, he's just,
he's almost like stealing
he
this
feels
guy's
too
pig.
much.
Yeah.
Because he is doing this to help a sick brother. So.
Okay, fair, I'll give you that. Because the guy just asked for a pig's foot for some reason.
Well, he's not eating, he's fasting
but he's like,
something.
I only want, he's sick.
He's sick and...
From fasting.
I think it was something like that.
Yeah. No, but then I love this whole thing, because... this is where, like, Francis finds out what happened, basically. And from this guy who's, like, basically pissed, who comes back.
Yeah, the shepherd, or the pig shepherd.
The pig farmer. First he's mad, and then he comes back later with the whole, like, this, it's a great shot at this guy holding this huge pig on his shoulders as he's, like, slowly walking back up. Then he just throws it to them, because he's like, fine, you guys can have it. Because that's actually how the scene ends, because first Francis tells Juniper, okay, you better go apologize to this guy right now. And I love how it's shot, too, because it's like a single take of this guy mad. He's come and talked to him, and then we see him walking back in the background. And he's, like, pretty far away as Francis is talking to Juniper in, like, the foreground. And then he's like, okay, go apologize right now. And it's still the same take, and he just goes and sprints after him.
Jumps on his back.
Yeah, then he cuts to them and he's like jumping on his back. He's like, please, brother. And he's like, it's honestly a foreshadowing of how easy it is to throw this guy around.
I mean, yeah.
Honestly, that might be why he was cast too. Like, how easy are you to throw around? Like, no, but then basically, it's almost seemed like Juniper's apology works because the guy comes back and gives him the pig, even though like it really didn't. But the next scene is we already talked about this is like another example of the juxtapositions, because we just got like a comedic scene with Juniper, and then it's like maybe the saddest scene in the movie of the leper, Francis meeting the leper.
Sad / beautiful, I don't know.
No, both.
It's definitely beautiful.
And let me read what Rosselini says about it, because he says, quote, and he's talking about this scene specifically where he says, it's an identification of truth, a sort of humility, an acceptance of everything with your brain. That is the main point. Francis was afraid to kiss a leper. It's terrible and dangerous too. He got over all that. The main purpose in life is to be courageous. And you kind of see that in this scene, which I love. It's like, first he's like on the ground, just like praying in close up. He says, quote, my God, nailed on the cross. To love you in the company of my brothers. Nailed on the cross, my God. And he's like, just basically like, honestly, just thinking about Jesus in a way, it seems. And he like looks up. And he that's where we hear the bells and the leper. I think we hear the bells first.
I think you hear it first, yeah.
And then just like the shot of like the leper like walking across this field as Francis like it's crazy how he just like follows him too first, because you could tell he's like trying to think about it, like what he's gonna do. This is why I love like
we also think the leper's initially rejecting him too.
Yes. He thinks he's like going to be made fun of or something. At least that's how I view it. Like, oh, here comes someone to bother me or something. And I love how you can tell like Francis even seems to be thinking about like it seems like very impulsive of him, you know, this idea of Rossellini's impulse, you know, this impulse of love. It's like he doesn't know exactly what he's going to do, he just knows he wants to be around this guy, you know. And then like he slowly comes next to him and he starts hugging him, and like the leper doesn't know like how to react, and then like as like he fully hugs him, because he kind of half hugs him first, then he fully hugs him, and then like you kind of even see like the leper's arms even come up a little bit to accept the hug too, which is like just like such a sad moment. It's like Blake says it's a beautiful but also like sad moment, because it's like this guy probably hasn't done this, you know.
No, that's why it's beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. This kind of human moment. But then as the guy just walks away, it's like as the guy walks away in wide shot, it cuts back to Francis just like crying in the field, and then it pans up to the sky.
He puts his hands over his
face. That's true. Yes, he does that multiple times.
He does that multiple times. It's just so distinct in the scene. So.
Yes. And then we're gonna see how Junipero basically goes too far, and he's gonna have to, learn a lesson away. Because the next thing he does is he cooks food for 2 weeks.
How are we gonna keep this?
But it's got one of the best shots because he thinks of this as a good idea. It's like, we should cook for 2 weeks for everyone. And then this shot of how are we gonna get this huge pot? And they're like, go borrow it from the shepherds. And the shot of this barrel is tall of him. Honestly, yeah, it feels like something like that.
It feels like the like him running away from the rocks. In that movie.
Wait, what movie?
Seven Chances. I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's that movie.
Yeah, you're right.
But it's definitely the same exact type of shot.
Yeah, no, but this one's damn, this barrel's actually as tall as him too.
It's crazy.
Honestly, yeah, some of Rossellini's most use of montage too to make it look like a barrel's actually chasing a guy.
It was all in long shot.
No, but then there's it's a great reaction too of Francis learning what Junipero did, when he's telling him, I tried to cook food for 2 weeks.
Well, I just love it because they see it at first. They just see this fucking giant pot and just this huge flame boiling. And I love the simpletons just throwing the wood inside the pot, and Junipero's like, "What are you doing? The greens, man, the greens, not the wood."
See, it makes me want to know what was Giovanni actually doing before this,
Well, we see that scene of him walking away from his family with that cow, and it just seems like he's being a burden on his family. I guess.
Probably. But Junipero's argument, he says, "Free of cares for supper, we can all go preach." That was his thinking, which is you can.
And it's the soup that will fill the soul and the mind.
He was just probably 600 years too late before refrigerators.
Exactly.
He was thinking ahead of his time. He was ahead of his time. But that's when Francis basically tells him, okay, he grants him permission to go preach. He's spinning it as a good thing, but to me it's like a punishment. You basically have to go learn how the world actually works, because he says, I grant you permission, but you can only say one thing. I talk and accomplish
I think it's before anything. Is that the only thing he said? Or I thought it said before you say anything.
I think it's before you say anything.
Yeah.
Oh.
You must begin each sermon with these.
You must begin each sermon with.
That's why it's kind of a good thing. He's respecting this fervor that he has.
It's better to preach by example than by words.
Yes. But honestly, that's basically okay. No, you're right. Yeah, because he does say more than that too. Basically, it's a good thing, but he's also learning his lesson too.
Yeah,
because he's about to go learn how the real world works in a way, you could say. Because then he goes and honestly, these are some of the great shots too of just Junipero walking through. He sees these kids playing on this seesaw thing that the soldiers built. And just
well, I love the
it's little details like that, the waterfall in the
because he's yelling down, you can't hear anything. Also, he's trying to yell at the people down to preach to them. Maybe I don't know, but no, I think that's the joke. He's trying to preach and the waterfalls are too loud to hear anything. No, but then he no, because I love just the kids part is because I've watched this movie a few times. I've always just kind of skipped over that moment. I'm just now I just love that little moment of him getting the advice from the kids and
oh wait, this guy's Junipero.
Yeah.
This whole time I thought he was St. Francis.
No way.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I was so
St. Francis is the main guy. He's the more sad one. He's the one that talks to the leper and stuff.
Wait, they're different guys?
Yeah.
I thought these guys were the same guy.
Oh, wait. No, you did.
They look really similar. Hold on. Wait.
No, because they have these scenes with each other.
They do have scenes. Really? Wait, okay, I'm so confused. That's crazy. They look almost the exact same, bro. Or maybe I'm just stupid.
They kind of have a similar head shape, I guess.
They have a similar face, don't they? Am I tripping? Or
I wouldn't say they have a similar face. Francis is
I can kind of see it now, but okay, that's an easily mistakable thing because that's Saint Francis.
But they act totally different though.
And that I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking, bro.
That's hilarious.
They're both men of God,
They're both men of God. But Francis would love you thinking.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what this movie I feel is trying to be.
That's crazy.
Well, Jenna was trying to be.
Yeah, it's they're emulating Francis. So
no, I was confused at the beginning. I was low key confused at the beginning when you said. But Junipero is in it just as much as or more as St. Francis. I was like, wait, really? I thought St. Francis was the whole thing. I was like, wait.
That's why we were saying that.
Yeah, dude. Okay. Damn. I get it now.
Because most of them, I feel like a lot of the main stories deal with Junipero instead of Francis.
This is one of
that makes a lot more sense.
Probably where he spent the most money.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense now with some of these stories. Now that I think about it.
No, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Because it's like
You have to watch it again now. Maybe raise that to a 5.
Yeah,
No, I'm just...
But this is like where he like arrives at. This is probably where he spent most of the money on this movie. Is this set right here with this huge base.
Seesaw.
No, but this is after.
Oh yeah.
Whenever they're
like,
actually going
they
to
actually
camp,
go into the base where he's like seeing all these like guys like betting. They're like
it's
gambling.
crazy.
On
I love it. Well, it's just like these fucking like basically barbarians, and they're gambling on if this guy can fill up a pint with blood from his nose because they just sock him in the nose. This is their game. I'm just like, oh yeah, so this definitely happened back in the day, 100%.
Yeah, they're playing some. Well, that happens right now with the slap game. There's literally on TV.
Oh my god, I forgot about the slap game.
But this one, like, they're having the slap game, and then one of them starts bleeding, and so then they change the bet to whether or not he can fill the whole cup up with his blood. And the way it's shot, where he's just holding the cup,
he's just holding it like this.
The blood is like clearly fake, but it's like it's funnier because of that, because like the way the blood is dripping out his nose.
Just keeps on going, man.
Yeah.
It's a gusher.
It's like it's like one consistent stream.
And Janipro's just watching it too. He's just like.
Well, he's watching because then he starts trying to preach. And immediately after he starts preaching, like they take his body and they start throwing him around, like they're not even listening. It's like one of my favorite scenes where like they're tossing him around. They start jumping rope with his body.
Insane. That must have hurt.
No, oh my god, that one is insane. But then, he's like gets beaten up, and that's when he says, "God, I thank you because I finally understand that it's not by words, but by example that souls are one." And that's like after like he's been like beat up, and he's like standing on top of this. I think they tell him he has to jump off.
Well, they throw him. They throw him up there.
They throw him up there.
Yeah.
Basically, that's how he has to come down. He jumps. It's like such a weird shot. It's almost like shot like the way the body falls in Germany Year Zero, where it's like it falls too fast for like if you were shooting in a single take because he just hits the ground. But then they basically take him to have him killed because they think he's going to be like they had some prophecy of some guy that was going to come.
Well, no, they just got warned that someone in beggar's clothes is going to come try to kill that guy.
Yeah.
They think it's him.
Yeah. I don't know where they got word of that though. Like, I guess they never explained that. That's something like they could have made that up too. But anyway, they take him to this main guy whose name is Nikolai, and apparently this is like the only actor in the movie, and you can kind of tell, because he's the one actually emoting with his face.
He's hilarious too.
But like I said, the armor.
But see, this is why I kind of like it, because you say emoting with his face. He does a lot of that in the second half, but whenever he's in that armor, like whenever Rosselini's making him stay in that armor, he's trying all he can to just like see and to emote with his body just being stuck in armor. It's hilarious.
No.
Like his neck is so long, man. That shot of him just like shooting his head up, trying to like see how the little eye things will always stick in my head because it's so funny, dude.
No, I mean you said I have to read Rosselini's like. Justification for why this armor scene, because it kind of goes exactly what you're saying. He said, at the time they didn't wear armor. It was created later, but we committed this falsification to give the character power, to contrast a little human being and a robot. It's very rare to find the Fioretti of Ginepro. Generally, when the Fioretti are published, it is cut out because it's the silliest, yet is the most valuable. They wanted to be silly, just to be very foolish, because through silliness you can find the truth. And I love, like, first that silliness you can find the truth, but also the contrast of that little human being and the robot. That's how in a way it feels like. Just basically this whole scene is like, it comes down to those two, like this kind of encounter they're about to have. I guess we're basically there where they. Well, first, like, we see the kind of
their monk, basically.
Their monk that recognizes.
Well, he doesn't recognize him. He just asks him where he's from, and he basically gets through it all that he's with Francis, and that means he's definitely not this guy that they think he is. So,
well, first we've seen him like basically get beaten up. Like he gets dragged through like he gets dragged through like by a horse on his body and stuff
through that pile of like weapons and shit. Like it's insane.
So he actually is taking a beating. Like it's played 100%. Like light in a way for the most part, but like he is going through struggles.
He's about to get his head chopped off, so...
Yes.
There's literally the two headsmen going there like, no, let me do it, because the last one you chopped off his rump instead of his head, basically. Yes. It's like, damn, okay. It's kind of dark, but...
No. But then when this priest comes and saves him, who recognized when he started talking about how he's a friend of Francis...
There's a lot of interesting dynamics in this group, which we never see again. Obviously, it's just in this one little thing because we have these like barbarian types, and then we have like what look like to be like these higher knights that are just right underneath Nikolai, because that's the guy that basically says like we need to get the monk before you actually kill him. Like he deserves like his last rites or something. So like it's an interesting dynamic between everyone in this little group. Honestly,
yeah, no, because you pointed out is actually like one of my favorite little moments of the scene is like. We see, is that the guy who's saying, like, oh, the poor are always, like, trying to get away with things and stuff?
Yeah.
There's that guy, and then we see the priest who saves him, and they're having this, like, kind of debate on, like, maybe, like, Aristotle, where they start bringing up Aristotle.
Yeah.
Where, like, Aristotle says, this is the priest says, Aristotle says, those who despise the world protect themselves from it. And then the other guy's, like, he's saying how, like, the poor are actually bad, like, that's why Jennifer is bad and stuff. And it's funny because like they're like and they're using the word ergo a lot. Like I think Rossi's making the joke like they're trying to sound like smarter than they are.
Yeah.
And then like it's so funny because the main leader
the
guy,
general,
he says ergo too, and he's like it doesn't even apply to anything they're saying. He's like ergo, like I just want to do this.
I just love it because he just like starts shaking his armor, literally going like I don't understand what you're talking about. Let me out of here.
No, because that's what. Yeah, no, that's actually after Jennifer goes on this speech, or like basically giving a sermon of like how he's like so humble, and basically like saying he's nothing and he's like a sinner.
He was saying like
he says
whenever he accused him of being that guy, he was like, "Would you do it?" And Jennifer was like, "I would do that and so much worse if the Lord was looking over me."
Yes, basically that kind of like innocence, like. And then he says, because one of the lines he says, "Before God, we are always more guilty than men could ever say." And then that's when the tyrant's like, he's like, "I don't want to hear this." And he's like trying to get out, like literally this like,
It's like childish. It's so funny.
No, but to me, it's almost like that's why it's like it's funny in that surface level, but it's also like this like huge leader confronting something he doesn't want to confront. He can't escape it. But then like also this guy that like. The fact that they need a ladder to get this helmet off this guy is like,
ladders.
It's like it's like it's just so impractical too at the same time.
That's how you knew it wasn't real.
This is like the Elon Musk of his day.
What is this useless contraption?
No, because I love what the priest says. Because like after he gives all this stuff, the priest is like, "If this is Juniper, imagine what Francis is like."
And that's kind of like the whole movie, basically.
Yes. Which is why Luke,
Exactly. He mistook them.
I mean, okay, all right.
Although you probably should have recognized it with that line there that they were different. But
probably, but I get it now.
It does go with like he doesn't accent. He does. I mean, he accents stuff, but that's it. He doesn't emphasize really. But anyway, then we get like one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when the two of them are alone in the tent, as with like the tyrant basically deciding whether or not he's going to kill Juniper or not. And it's like very to me it's very similar to also the leper scene we just saw because it's like this encounter between two people. It's all just
a test.
It's a test.
This is a test. For me, it's like this general testing Jennifer to see if he's actually as meek as he seemed back there. Oh. Like to see if he's actually who he says he is, almost, or like if he's actually like the person he says he is. Like if he's this good man that will not actually hurt him, no matter what he tries to do to him.
Honestly, the tyrant, honestly, he's kind of like a silent movie villain.
He is.
Like, it's almost like
though his face is insane too.
And this is like you mentioned a silent movie villain, but it's shot like these like silent movie characters too, like. The way that the struggle is going back and forth, like for the most of it, like he's the higher one and Jennifer's the lower one, looking up and down. Yeah. And then like as like it's toward the end where he's like starting to really struggle with the face, we see like his face be the lower one and Jennifer's like the higher one. I
love it whenever he goes like he's just like staring at him. And he's like,
yes, that's what I'm saying. That one. Where he's like that's when like his face is literally going down. Because like that's what cinema language is. It's like the higher face is the one looking down, and the lower one, power wise. No, but like that's why it's funny you mentioned like this is a test for Juniper because I was almost saying like this is a test for the tyrant.
I mean,
this guy him encountering innocence, and because like it's just great, like no words, and then all of a sudden he's just like we're leaving, like basically he's changed for some reason, and they like it's just such a. I'd never even realized until this last time watching how kind of beautiful this moment is. Of like, first of all, they burn everything. Like we're burning everything. We're just escape it. And then just the last shot of Junipero just like walking by himself through the rubble of like he just caused all this. Like,
well, it's because That the general literally asked him whenever he first brought him there. He was like, "You're here? Are you here to burn my village or to burn my camp?"
Yes,
and then it's just like
he literally did.
He literally was.
Honestly,
basically.
he was that guy. Fuck,
He
I didn't
was
even
that
think of
guy.
that. Yeah, damn. It was a prophecy. I didn't even think about it like that. No, because I just love this guy. Like, yeah, Jennifer was like, this like simple guy is like caused all this.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
and he just like doesn't even really know it as he's like walking back. But then we get another great episode of quote how Brother Francis and Brother Leon experience the things which are perfect happiness. And it's like literally the exact opposite. Yeah, it's like,
This one is one of the more not uncomfortable like watch just like filmically. I'm just like I'm thinking about being in those robes after they get thrown into that mud, and I'm just like, dude, I would hate to be in this robe right now because they're like walking like knee deep in that mud.
No, that mud
like,
is
oh
not
my god.
livable. No. But first, like they have this little encounter, which I love. It kind of goes to what, like, to me, how Rosselini, like, at least how Tagalga writes it, like how Rosselini treated money in a way too, where he loved it, but he like didn't value it in a way. Because we first see Francis. We see this guy. I think the murder's already happened.
Well, it's this highwayman basically, or this bandit that's trying to rob someone on the
Yes.
road.
Is it snowing, by the way? Because like, there's like little like...
It's like ash, maybe.
Yeah,
Is it
something
ash
like
or
that.
snow? I don't know.
It makes it look amazing.
It is
So,
amazing.
Because this guy apparently murders this other guy because he was accused of stealing.
Well, he was trying to steal.
He was trying to steal.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and he murdered him. And then Francis comes to his gold worth a man's life, and just like to get rid of him, the guy throws him some money at him, or just hands him money.
He was like, here's some pittance or whatever,
and he rides off. And Francis just takes the money as he's looking, and just throws it on the ground, and he goes and checks on the guy. But then as they're walking with Brother Leon, they keep walking, and the brother asks him, Francis, where does perfect happiness reside? And he, without answering, he just says, look, a house, let's go see if there's people there to praise Jesus. Almost like he's answering the question by
acting.
The acting, yeah, exactly what he's doing. Exactly. So then they go to the house. And you think, like, it's almost like you think it's going to be romantic. Because, like, literally the way the episode is titled is, like, how we found perfect happiness.
Yeah.
And you think that they're going to have a good encounter. And the fact that it's, like, the exact opposite. Because, like, there's, like, this guy... First of all, the way this guy he casts as the guy that's chasing after him is, like, has an amazing face. Like, you can tell he's cast just purely because of this guy's face. It's, like, this, like, really hardened face. Like, I don't know. It's like almost boxy in a way.
Like it looks cartoonish in a sense.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Yes, that's right. Yeah. And then like there's that shot right there that you just showed. You can tell he's a non-actor too because he's almost like enjoying it. He's like smiling.
Yeah.
He's like while he's like running down.
Yeah,
it's just so great.
He looks like those like political cartoons, like the
he's like very he's got some
like
kind of
in
like,
real life.
Yeah, his face is just there's something about it. Because like one of them is like they say they're like well. Serve Jesus Christ with us, and as he's chasing after him, he's like, "I'll show you how I serve Jesus Christ."
It's so good.
And then they're like, "We just asked for charity." He's like, "I'll show you charity with my club." As he's beating them, like,
This is my charity.
yeah. But then as they're leaving, after they've like been beaten up, this is when Francis says, "Oh, brother Leon, Lamb of our good Lord, now that we've borne all of this for the love of our brothers Christ, know that in this resides perfect happiness." Because above all, the gifts Christ bestows on his servants is that of triumphing over ourselves, and beating every evil deed and tribulation out of love for him. And this alone lies perfect happiness. And I guess that's, in a way, that's the answer to the perfect happiness question. But then we... this is actually the last episode we're now on, is how Francis left St. Mary's and traveled the world.
This one's also one of my favorites.
Yes.
I mean, it kind of has to be.
Yeah.
So
Like,
great.
it speaks for itself.
First of all, it kind of emphasizes just how short the time span of the movie is. It's almost like this movie has happened outside of time. Yeah. It's like the movie is starting, they're coming home from the Pope, and now they're about to go take off, you know. But we just watch this like in between time of like growth, basically, you know. But it's like not narrative growth in a way, it's just like moments. But then we get the shot, like we've already mentioned a few times, like the way he kind of holds his hands and how he puts them to his face. Like we see this like shot of him just like looking around the room while they're in the hut, and he's like crying. He kind of cries as he puts his hand to his face. He says to him as he's walking out, he says, "I only take my faith with me. My heart stays with my heart stays here with me, or my heart stays here." there's that great shot of, like, there's like just great shots of them walking
All together,
through the field. This is like, a lot of the scene is just walking for this final, like 20 minutes or 15, I guess 10, 15 minutes. They walk through this town. It looks like they're first giving away stuff.
They're giving away what they have, and they're getting charity, and then giving the charity away.
The order you kind of have to really. This is an example you really have to be paying attention because I'm pretty sure they come in with the stuff they're giving away before they leave,
and then they get more.
Then
stuff.
they get gifted stuff, but then they immediately give away.
It's
that
like
stuff.
They're getting gifted the stuff for their journey, and then they're giving that stuff away.
Yeah, because then someone else is like, "Oh, but we just got our stuff taken away. Like, what about us?"
Yeah,
and then they give all away that stuff too, and it's like one of my favorite ones.
We can't forget about the shot though of the two like cattle looking at them. This one.
Oh yes,
it, like, happens,
while
like,
they're walking in the town.
Yeah, while they're walking.
Oh yes.
Honestly, that's a good reminder for India. Has some shots like that too.
Oh yeah.
No, but it's like one of my favorite lines in the movie. Like after, like I said, they come in and give away stuff, then they get stuff, then they give away that stuff, all in this like 1 minute scene.
Yeah.
And then at the end, one of them says, I think it's Francis. He says, "Now that we've given you everything, let's go and thank the Lord," and just has that idea of like almost like that sentence shouldn't even really make sense in a way, you know. But then they keep walking. They walk outside the city. They go to a church and pray. They walk through a forest. And that's where we end up with this last scene of like the crossroads where they're all going to split up. And I wanted to read, before I we get to the specific of the movie, I wanted to read what Tad Gallagher says about how he sees this ending, of basically why this ending is so sweet, but also like it's such a Rosselini ending in terms of like you have to kind of keep moving, you know. Because what he says is, quote, "Indeed, what threatens the brothers' questing, visualizing their constant motion, is the temptation of permanence, their hut, their community, whereas it is the mission of each of them to wander the world alone, like a leper, which is the price one pays to revise the whole conception of the universe. Rosselini avoids allusion to how quickly Francis's death the Franciscans would abandon the mission and embrace the temptation. Yet the problem is already here in the movie. Rosselini repeatedly reminds us, in the historic tenses of the intertitles, prefacing each of the 10 episodes, that all of this happened long, long ago, if not once upon a time, and then contradicts himself by bringing this lost storybook world magically into present time, alive in characters who attempt to hold on to their time, that waste away despite them." I love that reading of this ending, where it's like, that's why the movie this ending feels so bittersweet. It's like, we just watched all this, like, this world of possibility, this world of community of love, and then it's like, they have to break it up, you know, they have to go spread it, like he says, their mission is, to almost live like the leper, you know, alone, because you have to change it alone, and, because I mentioned last week with this idea of like Rosselini heroes never have answers that are applied to everyone. You know, it has to be a like the answers usually are for the individual. You know, they can't apply to a group in a way. So it's like that kind of tension. But yeah, then we get this kind of last scene of they're basically, I think one of them asks them, "How do we know which way we'll go?"
Yeah.
And then all Francis says, "I command you out of holy obedience to spin around where you stand, the way children do at play, and don't stop spinning until you're dizzy." And I just love that because, like, I mentioned that Romer quote at the beginning of like aesthetics and basic content and expression become the same thing. Like, this is just like one little line where it's like the same, like, it kind of applies, where he's telling him to spin around like children, but he's like literally telling him that's how you're gonna do your that's how literally you're gonna choose where you're going. You know, it's like literally true too at the same time. But then they all just start to spinning, and Giovanni, he spins for a long ass time.
He does spin for a long time. They're like, "Are you done yet? Are you dizzy yet?"
Yeah. And then they all they ask. Yeah. Then they all. It's like a great little shot too, where the camera's panning. They're all naming the cities where they're all facing as they fell, and then they ask Giovanni where he's pointing. He says, "That sparrow in the tree." And then Francis laughs and says, "Then you will follow that sparrow as surely as the path God has chosen." No, it's a great kind of just, you know, summation of the whole movie, and that's basically, I think that's the last line of the movie, honestly, if I remember, because then the movie it goes to a wider shot as we see them all kind of walking in their separate ways, and then we hear you're gonna hear the song at the beginning of this episode, but we hear all the monks singing, chanting. Yeah, great movie. Any last thoughts? Luke, I need Luke to watch it again. Make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let me. You give me shit for the 4.5, but your first 3 watches of Flash Samurai, you get 4.5. So.
Okay, that was brutal.
And it took you 4 watches to get 5 stars.
I wonder why.
Damn, I watched it 3 times that year too.
Damn, you making fun of me for the.
No, True Lover of the Flowers of St. Francis.
It's definitely a 5 now, though. No, but honestly, one of my great favorite movies. The most Fellini movie too, like I mentioned. I think it should make a little more sense. There's certainly like a, I don't know, I can't think of a better way to say it, but like a Fellini spirituality to the movie. You know, this kind of likeness that maybe some of like or if we're comparing this like Pascal or something, where they're a lot more like somber and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, after the break, we'll come back and review Rosselini's India. And we're back to talk about Rossellini's India, Matri Bhumi. Damn, what year is this actually? I don't know.
54.
No, it's like late 50s.
Late 50s? I don't know.
Damn, I should know this. I'm sorry.
Hold on, I got it. It's 59.
Okay,
59.
Yeah, I knew it was
I
late
know,
50s.
Yeah, 1959. Before I get into this, because this is a major movie for me for a lot of reasons. I mean, I guess if you wouldn't know if you're just listening to the podcast that I'm Indian, but
I don't know. Like if someone were to hear your voice without seeing you, would they know? I actually don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Probably not.
But like, you know, I grew up in the West, so I don't know. This movie has kind of interesting, like a Western perspective of India in quotes, and I say heavy in quotes because like, and at the end of the day, this is it's not really a movie about India. It's more a movie about Rossellini's, like almost like his own perspective on like the world through India in a way. Like, have you seen The River?
Yeah, I was really thinking about this.
Yes. It's in a way the way like also Renoir approaches India. Like, it's not really a movie about India, you know.
Yes.
Okay, but yeah, before I get into it, because it's obviously a very special movie, and I love it. But what do you guys think? 4.5. We'll start with you. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, I love the movie.
You love it.
It's a great film. I kind of said it before, like the way he's like inversing Journey to Italy, kind of like using this documentary as a base to kind of like explore these interconnected stories, kind of within India, and then kind of like the ideas that come out of it, and it's just like there's just some unbelievable like poetic moments and like and honestly, you can't mention this movie without the animal scenes because like. He there is narration, but to me, like, the images, like, you don't even really need the narration. Like, it definitely adds something to it, but, like, it's just some of these images, especially of the animals, are just, like, amazing. Like, it's so, like, it's just so, like, relaxing and just, like, beautiful to me. Especially with the elephants, but also, like, the way he's, like, filming the monkeys and everything, like, it's just unbelievable. Like, as a person who, like, loves watching, like a lot of like films about like using animals in this way, like those are definitely my favorite parts for sure.
Okay.
But
what about you, Blake?
No, I love India also. Second time watching it. Honestly, it kind of feels just like a movie about what does it mean to be human at the end of the day, or like what does being human even mean? Because
what does it mean to be monkey?
What does it mean to be monkey? No, like because like humans. At the end of the day, we are just higher or more evolved animals, you know? And so him just going through and kind of like showing us kind of like what we have to do to live, and then what animals have to do to live. It's not that different. Also, just like the ability to like trying to find connection through like love and stuff like that, or just all this random stuff that like, what does it mean to be human? It's just kind of what this movie is to me almost.
Yes,
I don't know.
Yes.
How do you connect in this new world? Also, is it like a big thing at the heart of this? I feel like.
Yeah. And the way he does that using specifics of India, that's where like India comes in specifically in a way. Where to say that? But no, I agree. Like this idea of just what it means to be human. That's what makes it like the poetic part.
Yeah.
You know, it's like for him personally. Like there's so many little moments like with the elephants and like.
Well, even the dam.
Yes, the dam.
That's just it's just all
Like because like yes, he's talking about the elephants, but also feels like he's still talking about what it means to be human.
Exactly.
The elephants.
Well, like whenever he's showing the elephant love ritual and stuff like that, we have the elephants like falling in love, and then we have this quick little scene of the guy going like, "Oh, by the way, my wife's also pregnant. I have to send her away."
Yeah.
So it's just like there's like a lot of parallels that he's doing.
And it's like he's not even trying to hide like the parallels really. No. But is there anything else you want to say? Like, what about? Is there anything about the structure that you guys noticed?
Feels like mine.
Because I know I do actually like what you said about this kind of being an inverse of like the Bergman movie.
Well, it starts in it's interesting because it starts in the city, right, and then it goes kind of more rural.
Yeah, so it starts in the city, and then he's like, to get the more authentic India, we have to go to the country. But that's where this kind of elephant story starts.
Yeah, it's kind of like the more undocumented parts, you could say.
Yes.
Which I think India at this point in time wasn't. The River was the first color movie to ever be shot in India.
Yes.
Like I'm sure, like it's India. I guess in terms of like I'm not gonna say like the first time ever was filmed.
No, I know what you're saying though.
Like from a foreigner's perspective.
Yeah, it was like these are so early people filming in color at least anyway.
Like it's definitely probably undiscovered by that element.
Yeah. No, that's why there are documentary aspects to that. Just the shots of India throughout the movie too. Yeah. Especially now, it's like India in the 50s. You know.
Yeah.
But I guess before there's a few things I want to get to before we get into it specifically. The first, we have to talk about. I mean, obviously we called last week the Bergman trilogy because of him like making. It's actually not a trilogy. I keep saying that, but it's like 5 or 6 movies, whatever. I should just call them the Bergman movies.
Yeah. There are 3 that people generally refer to as the trilogy, but
I'll just call them the Bergman movies, and it's significant because he was married to Ingrid Bergman.
Yeah.
Not only just making the movies with her, but this movie should be called. First, let me just read what Rosselini said about this movie. He said, "Quote." It's actually not about this movie. He just said this in general. Quote: "One person helped me more than any other to see and understand. This was India, who would become my wife." So that makes sense on a lot of levels. First of all, there's this idea of what he believed India taught him about learning about it and stuff. But more importantly, also when he did go to India, he ended up cheating on his wife with this woman in India that he ended up marrying. And I should give a little backstory because there's more backstory in the Tag Gallagher.
Did he cheat on Ingrid Bergman?
It was kind of like mutual cheating, I guess, because like she was already with some other guy. Like
Ingrid Bergman was.
Yeah. There's more detail. I didn't go over. I read about it when I was going through the book, but I didn't go over the details because I'm like, I don't care about that stuff as much. It actually is kind of interesting. Like they were already fighting and stuff, and then he decided to go make this movie in India, and so he moved away. And I forgot how long he was in India, but it was a while. And then like she was back in I think France still, or Italy. I forgot where. But anyway, so he's back. So now he's in India filming this movie, and there was a documentary filmmaker. His last name is Dasgupta. I forgot his first name. And he had made some Indian documentaries, but he had known Rosselini, and he was really excited to like work with Rosselini and stuff and kind of meet him. Yeah. But he had some. Then he got assigned to some film or something, so he couldn't work with him. So he decided to let his wife work with Rosselini instead to help as a script supervisor.
This motherfucker.
Yeah, you know where this is going. But yeah, so
his wife.
Basically, yeah. Yeah.
He stole a fan.
No, but it's not stolen because they both fell in love with each other. You know, it's a very romantic thing.
Okay.
No, okay. no, he had
Okay,
it,
buddy.
But
like, if you think about it, Rosselini, he's not at fault for it.
That's not what did I say that?
You're about to say that.
When
You're about to say that.
You were about to say that. I'm just
He
pointing
knows
out
what
what
you're
happened.
thinking, man.
I'm just okay. First let me read a quote that she said. Years afterwards, suddenly, her name is Sonali. She reflected. His encounter with India was special. The Matri Bhumi, the great mother enchantress who charms, softens and cultivates. Not everyone, but those she chooses. Roberto abandoned himself to her naturally, willingly, without any resistance. And so she's kind of just describing like Rossellini's impact on India on his life, kind of thing, you know. But let me read what Tad Gallagher says about what India is, because he says, "Quote: Sonali is referring to Rossellini's film India Matri Bhumi, and to his encounter with India. But Sonali was India and Matri Bhumi. Who of us, deeply under another spell, will not identify places with them? And what if the spell is everything, spiritual and sexual, philosophical and emotional, a whole new culture, a person and a place we discover ourselves suddenly a part of?" And like, I don't know, I'm just mentioning that first because like there is that kind of undertone of the whole movie. Of, like that's why I feel so like romantic in a way, like how he's approaching it. I think it's like he is kind of thinking about her while he's making this. Because like I guess like I said, I didn't go over the details again, but from what I remember, like they she worked as like kind of a script supervisor and like thinking of some of these stories and making them more local, you know, like helping them in that way, you know, because a lot of these anecdotes feel very there's certain moments anyway that feel very specific to at the same time, even though the kind of general feeling is very general, you know, it's like about humanity, like any human or something. But it's funny, like it was also very dramatic too, because like this would be a crisis, like a huge deal anywhere at any time, but in like India in the 50s, like I can't even imagine like the level of scandal it caused and stuff, because like she was from a very like well-known family and stuff in India and stuff. I forget exactly like how, but yeah, basically like her whole family cut her off and stuff, and so she had to like basically move to Italy when Rossellini moved back and stuff.
I guess Rossellini cheated on her.
Yes, but
this fucking guy.
No, yeah, he definitely does. But like I'm pretty sure he was friendly with most of his wives even after. But David, okay, because this is just I just had to read this quote because like there's so many stuff I could have said, but I want to get to other stuff. But apparently, like before, this was like, I think this was before they left for back to Italy. David Lean, apparently, you guys know David Lean.
Yeah.
Okay, David Lean apparently squeezed her shoulders, shook his head, and said, My, such little shoulders. You don't know what a big loads you're going to have to carry. Like talking about her being with Rosselini. I mean, okay, I was...
was him and Rosselini friends or anything?
I don't know, it sounds like that. Okay, now that I'm here, I just have to say that we're kind of talking about how Rosselini was kind of like a shitty husband.
Yeah.
There's a quote of like, his second wife, Anna Magnini, the famous Italian actress. There's like a quote of her saying like, "Yeah, Rosselini should never be a husband." Like something
damn.
Like that. And then this is Fellini. This is the funny one because he's talking about him being when he first like the idea of him and Ingrid Bergman when they were together. He said, "I saw her the first time in their house. She was the way she always was in films, a queen, serene, pacific, and saintly. She had this necessity of always trying to understand. Sometimes she couldn't understand why we were laughing. Everyone would laugh except Ingrid. Then the joke would be explained and she would laugh alone. I remember Ingrid's innocence. She was very naive. For those of us who knew Roberto well, it was amazing to see them together. Always surprising." I mean, you can just read in between the lines there. He's trying to be a friend, you know. No, it's crazy. Like like everyone always talks about him like that. But at the same time, like I don't know, like he would always apparently be always super friendly to all these women too. Like one of the last people Anna Magnini spoke to before she died was Rosselini. Like she wanted to talk to him before she died and stuff. So it's like he was always that type of guy. He was always reaching out and stuff. Apparently sending letters, and that was a huge thing. You know, now people don't do that stuff. But I don't know.
Do you think Rosselini would be a "Where's my hug" guy?
That's a really good question, honestly. Holy shit.
Because now honestly, he might.
I don't know.
Because that would that would make me like him less for sure. I'm not gonna lie. If he was that type of guy.
Then no.
What if the letters just say something like, "Hope you're enjoying your new life. Here's where I am." It's like these little postcards.
Yeah, like passive aggressive. Like,
hope all is well.
But okay, to get more into the movie though, the first thing I want to mention is, I've mentioned last week the kind of impulse of love in Rosselini. This idea of like these characters having this kind of moment of change in the movies with like Europe 51 and Journey to Italy. But Tad Gallagher talks about starting with India, and he also talks about this is still true in Francesco and Europe 51. Let me read the quote first. He says, after India, and he's kind of quoting another kind of critic named Fischi, but he says, after India, the impulse is no longer something dormant that is suddenly awakened, that suddenly explodes in one brief moment of truth. Now it is a constant, unquenchable furnace within us. And then he quotes, and then he says, pushing Garibaldi to make Italy, which is a character movie he made, Paul to make the church, Louis to make the monarchy, Pascal to reconciliation. Roberto himself has changed from the vague, decadent bourgeois encountering changes to the old man struggling to demolish his ignorance little by little, day by day. Privately and artistically, he remains a mixture of Croce and Augustine. Acts of the Apostle and Messiah and Blaise Pascal may seem more humanist than religious in their study of Christian deeds, but they are awesomely evangelical in their depiction of the impulse that moves Christ and his followers, that transforms them in the world too. So that idea of like, I really like that because I think that's also why I like these later movies too, and especially why I was saying I really like these two movies even more than the earlier ones because like, I don't know, to me that just, it's more interesting as a movie and just kind of what I agree more, this idea of like, the impulse changing from vague, decadent bourgeois encountering changes to an old man struggling to demolish his ignorance little by little, day by day. This idea of like, that he says at the beginning, the impulse is no longer just a dramatic moment that's suddenly awakened to life. That is like happens in Voyage to Italy, Euro 51 in a way. Even though that one, that's what I'm saying, that one's not as much, but we didn't do Stromboli, but that one is obvious too at the ending. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
I've seen it.
You haven't?
She's like, I think it's like when she's at the top of the boat.
Yeah, that one too. Yeah, with that big moment, where the later movies, there's no very big moments. You know, they're just like this impulse is driving. You can tell in every moment that there's some kind of impulse driving them. You know, because let me read what he says in a different part of the book. He says, "Quote: Only in Francesco, Europe 51, and India Matri Bhumi do characters live out their illumination in daily life. Illumination is an attitude rather than a spur to concrete solutions, which is." That, especially that line of illumination as an attitude, that's kind of what I was saying St. Francis is about too. You know, it's like that kind of attitude of life is, and you can see it almost every scene, every moment of the film. You know, that's why there doesn't have to be like a progression of narrative that leads to some kind of conclusion where there's a big moment. You know, it's like the whole movies become interesting to me to watch because they have that impulse in every moment. You know, and the specifics become really more interesting because of that. But to keep kind of going, because this movie specifically, and it'll kind of influence the later movies as well, is he says basically this idea of what is a historical movie? What does it mean to even make a historical movie in the first place? Because he says, it almost sounds like an insult, and like this is why apparently Tad Gallagher says a lot of people when this movie first came out, people in India didn't like the movie because they were expecting like a documentary in India, and it was like this.
Yeah.
Because, and honestly, in a certain way, you could say it's still insulting, but let me read the quote. Quote, history, like science, does not exist in India. Science and history started to be known with the English, I think. Everything there becomes mythology, fable. Historical thinking, I believe, is not very alive in India. And moreover, they are right, because history is always written to modify things and to persuade people. And there's this idea of like, basically, history and mythology is like a much more blurred line than people think. You know, like people think history is like just this idea of writing facts, and mythology is like this thing that is not real. Yeah. But it's like almost every time we're telling history, we're doing mythology in a way. You know, we're kind of myth building. But like Rosselini's films, in a way, he's kind of acknowledging that. You know, that's why I like the movie so much. I'm sorry, this is kind of a long quote, but it's like this is kind of the downside of if you're reading a biography of a filmmaker, and the biography is actually written by like a really good film critic. They actually like write really good stuff too about the films. Because like I've read some other biographies where they're not just like they're just like good as just for information, you know. Yeah. They're not necessarily good as like a critic actually kind of like analyzing the film. But Tad Gallagher's like so good, so it's like, and the fact the book's like 900 pages, it's crazy. But because because in a way those earlier movies you could describe, I want to say very loosely, as melodramatic, right? Like you could say the moment is melodramatic, you know, like that kind of just the fact that you have to feel like you have to have some kind of moment with a huge resolution is more melodramatic, and I'm saying these terms very broadly. But then he says, starting with India Matri Bhumi, Rosselini, quote, refuses melodrama. And then he says, in order to validate fable. Matri Bhumi, the great mother enchantress who charms, softens, and cultivates. There's no need for Rosselini to mythify what is already mythological, to manipulate what is already myth. As Naples was Catholic, India is fable. Both cultures live in a present which is also the past. But in India, episodes do not climax with a revelation, with the protagonist finally tuning into everything that has been going on in or around him or her. In India, the revelation, if there ever one, occurred sometime before the episode begins. We have no need to shift time in order to find meaning, history, and myth. Characters, as in the old Rosselini master plot, still wander in labyrinths, still have revelations, and still have a sense of the miraculous. But there's now no longer the tension between the chorus and an uncomprehending foreigner that traumatizes every Rosselini picture since his first one, Pilot Returns. Now the miracles of personal revelation occur not in sudden, extraordinary events, but over the measured passage of time, as time reveals its reflection of eternity, through the ordinary unwinding of life. There's not a hint of melodrama in the Mahout's Elephant Master's love story, remarkably. Still, he treasures his moment no less. His sense of the miraculous is no less intense for being permanent. I just love that. We were even talking about that with the ending of Journey to Italy, like the characters kind of realizing like the miracle is it exists in every day, you know, it exists in every moment, and that's like them realizing. But it's like he says in this one, India's like the movie almost starts with everyone already realizing that before the movie's already started, you know. That's almost like an Ozu-esque thing, you know, like this idea of like the passage of time. Now the miracles of personal revelation occur not in sudden, extraordinary events, but over measured passage of time. That's like you could also describe Ozu, the way he approaches it the same way. You know, like this kind of revelations we have while watching. It's like it's nothing in the film that's dramatic. You know, it's just us having the revelation over the course. He goes on to say, and I won't read the whole quote, but he goes on to say like basically the documentary aspect of what people wanted from his films, what she says are ideas of history, ideology, and artifacts that you would normally get in a normal documentary. He says he puts all that second to what he considers is the Indian sensibility. Or the exact quote I would read is, quote, the documentaries, and he's talking about India specifically, is a way for me to prepare for the feature film. I tried first to observe, simply to report, without taking any position. And then when he says in the film, he's talking about India. He says, in the film, in contrast, the material is dramatically elaborated. What I tried to express is the feeling India gives, the inner warmth of the people. What struck me when I got back to Europe was the total absence of nature around us. I think that's first of all, he mentions the audience he's making it for, which is a good point. He's making it for a European audience, you know, and he's trying to give this idea of like a feeling of India, you know, of like just honestly the varieties of India inside of India, you know, the city with all the people, the different. I love like the intro with all the different languages that people speak in just this one city, you know, and just like all the crowds and stuff, and then all of a sudden it cuts to the jungle, the forest, and just like he says, this feeling of nature combined with like all this kind of people, this kind of feeling of India basically, just being in there the few times I've been there. I can really understand like what he's trying to say, and I love that he's not trying to be too specific about the history, because you can tell he doesn't like. If he would try to do that, it's like it would feel too outsidery, you know. At least in my perspective, it would like. It's almost like by making it like this, he's almost being more honest, like it is an outsider's perspective. You know, it's like more about humanity in general. Using,
Yeah.
Like it's even almost funny in certain moments where we hear like where it's actually such a really like it's almost like an experimental shift in my head where he's like it's like a documentary where it's like a narrator introducing us to stuff, and without any warning it cuts to the Elephant Master's his perspective and he's talking over the narration.
Yeah.
But it's almost funny in a way because it's an Italian voice talking through the from like the Indian
guy's point of view.
guy's point of view. So it's like almost comedic in a way, but it's like it goes to that overall point. It's like he's not trying to say like this is like the true Indian or something. Like this is a real Indian story or something.
All men are brothers. So.
Yeah, it's almost like he said mythology, fable, right? That's why we feel like anyone could read mythology and be like, this is about me, you know, in a way, because like it's not too specific to a certain like person or region or country, you know. But I wanted to read because this is also like I did I mention what's the Godard quote? Did I mention? I think it might have been before the podcast. This is like one of my favorite Godard quotes. Because I've already mentioned how Rosselini said this is like one of his most experimental films. Let me read the exact quote. He said, quote, India Matri Bhumi is probably the best example of everything I've said regarding my ambitions in cinema. It's a film that I really made experimentally. I tried to put onto film what I was thinking theoretically. Okay. So he says, I was trying to put on film what I was thinking theoretically. I think Godard's kind of review in this kind of quote, this long quote that's kind of popular, I think he kind of answers that. So he says, quote, India runs counter to all usual cinema. Here the image is only a complement of the idea that provokes it. India is a film of absolute logic, more Socratic than Socrates. Each image is beautiful not because it is beautiful in itself, like a shot in Eisenstein's Que Viva Mexico, but because it is a splendor of the true, and because Rosselini starts with the truth. There, where the others won't arrive except in 20 years perhaps, he has already gone from. India embraces world cinema as the theories of Riemann and Planck embraces geometry and classical physics. And then he says, in a coming issue, I shall prove why India is the creation of the world. And that last line is like, it kind of makes sense. It really makes frame the movie for me in a really good way too, because it's like he's not only telling these specific stories about India, like that he's kind of seeing throughout the like as he was there and stuff, but also it's almost like the birth of man in general. Like we start with like the animals and stuff, then we get like a love story, then we get like electricity and stuff. Like it's just like almost like the birth, like the growth of man, the creation of the world in a sense, like just like as a whole itself, like outside of just the individual little stories. And then even the way it ends with like I'll mention it at the end, but like he had to change the ending because like it was too negative the first time with like the monkey and stuff, and that's why it's like kind of ends all of a sudden with like, oh, and then the monkey found a new master, because like it really was supposed to end with just like the monkey's like lost and doesn't know where to go, and he's like, that's the modern state of man, like that was his whole thing. So he's like trying to tell, you know, the story of man too through like India, like I've been saying, but that idea of like the idea being great over the image, like Godard says, is like this is like the first time in cinema where he's saying that is like an idea of the idea being over the narrative in a way, you know, like what's going on screen, what the stories are being told. Yes, they're fun to watch and they're interesting, and it's like Blake said, they're really interesting to watch too. But it's like the idea we're supposed to get it from it, almost like there's nothing directly in any of the images that really say that. You know, the ideas, like you said, are really more important than just directly like what we're watching. And to me, that makes it art, not just necessarily like a straight up documentary. You know, and to me, that's like a good idea. That's a good way to watch the future movies too, because like there's like a way you should almost be asking like, why is Rosselini showing this? You know, like this boring thing. Like he loves like funeral scenes. I've noticed. Like we'll see one of Pascal too, I think. But like
we talk about the scenes of him in bed. Like
yes,
he loves like people just being in bed.
Yes. But you have to notice like the details of like why does he have like these two people from like different social classes talking or something, or like a lot of people in the background crowd talking about like
or just Descartes will randomly show up in the middle of a place Pascal movie.
Yes,
like, just like have to like take away the attention.
No, and like Pascal's kind of interest of listening, you know, like for new ideas from different people and stuff like that. So let me read what Yeah. Okay, because I said I mentioned this is what Rosselini was thinking theoretically. So let me read what Rosselini says himself, and then what Tal Gallagher says about Rosselini, because I kind of love this. To me, this is another example of I'm kind of like putting together an argument of presentation versus representation, like different examples of it and stuff. Yeah. So this would be another example of like two people talking about it. Is first Rosselini says, "quote What's important are the ideas, not the images. It's enough to have very clear ideas and to find the most direct image to express an idea. There are a thousand other ways besides film to express ideas. Writing, for example, if I were a writer. The sole thing a film possesses, in addition, is the possibility of putting into a single photograph 10 things at once. There's no need to be analytic in cinema while being so." And then Tad Gallagher's comment on this says, the, quote, 10 things are the people and the things around that have a meaning. The land beneath your feet, your house, the elephant you wash, the trees, the sounds you hear, your clothes you feel, the straw basket of stone you carry, the lake you have made. The 10 things are the form elements of film. And, like, that's exactly, like, the whole point of the movie, in a way. It's like, like in a way, like, everything around us is what makes us, in a way. And, like, I keep coming back to that Romer quote of, like, in Rossellini, content and expression are the same thing, you know? Yeah. Like, that's kind of the same thing he's saying, like, he never has to actually say anything. There's no character that ever says anything like that. You know, it's like you have to experience that while you're watching it yourself. Like, I liked what Blake said at the beginning, how he's describing the elephant scene, because how it's just fun to watch. Because, like, it's just so fun to watch on a surface level, too. Just, like, watching elephants get their bath, like, as a documentary. But then, like I said, it kind of fits the overall theme of this whole movie, too. This idea of, like, the relation of how man relates to the world, like, honestly, just enjoying a bath, you know, after working hard. Like, it doesn't matter if you're an animal or a human, which, you know, in the way, in that sense, is the same thing, you know. And this is kind of another example. Before we get to the movie specifically, this is another critic Tad Gallagher mentions in the book, named Bonicelli. Because Bonicelli mentions, I mentioned a different critic who had mentioned Flowers of St. Francis as like an atonal cinema, or like, you know, the beginning of like abstract cinema in a way. Yeah. Bonicelli kind of says this about India, where he says, Bonicelli, wanting to defend India, argued that it solicits unusual participation from us because of its unfinished summary style and its intuition of a new language. Its representation of pure feelings freed from chains of logical narrative made it one of the first, quote, abstract films. And I love that because it's like, you know, you guys have heard me talk about this a lot, this idea of like, that's just a good example of presentation where he says, quote, its representation of pure feelings freed from chains of logical narrative. This idea of like feelings don't have to be tied to the narrative directly, you know, it's like we can take what we want from it, you know, as he's showing.
Well, it's I'm watching India this time, it reminded me a lot of Days, because Psy and Days obviously is completely unsubtitled. This one, the narrator's subtitled, but anytime Indians are talking on the screen, nothing's subtitled. Yes, it's just like all feeling based. Like you're just allowed gestures. To think whatever, all gestures, all whatever you want. Like it allows you to think whatever you want.
No, and there's some where like you can still get the picture.
Well, yeah, because like I love the one where the Italian narrator is going like, and now we have the two dads basically bickering about their children, and this is the two dads bickering about their children basically.
And you get to laughing.
And it's just like all the laughing, but you don't need to like know what they're saying. Technically, no, it's just like all feelings. So.
Okay, there's two last things I want to get to, and these are just more about kind of like Rosselini's thoughts on India, as like, and these are kind of like more like Phil's, just how he saw India, and hopefully these kind of will impact like, you'll see why he chose certain scenes and stuff too as we're watching it. Because the first thing is, he talks about because I've mentioned how Rossellini loves these idea of contrasting or juxtaposition between two things that seem opposed, you know. In this case, he loves India's both its mysticism and its rationalism. And he says, quote, India is the discovery of another world. There's a measure of man there which seems absolutely perfect and rational to me. We call it mystical and we say something completely mistaken. If we say it's not mystical, we make another mistake. The truth is they try to be completely rational, to see man as he is, scientifically, biologically as he is. And one of the human components is mysticism, which, from an emotional point of view, is perhaps the highest expression of man. As there's respect for all human manifestations, there's respect for that too. Indian thought seems mystical, and it is, but it's also profoundly rational. The zero was invented in India, the thing most rational and metaphysical at the same time. This attempt to see all human tendencies is the fascinating thing. In a world like ours, in which one must be either white or black, the tinted halves, the shades don't exist, but the world and people even more are made of shades. And I love that. Like, honestly, that quote kind of speaks for itself. And the last thing I want to mention before we get in is like, this is just so funny because I've actually noticed this too. Like, this is probably true just any country you go to, but this is like especially true. There's my own observations of India. Is like, India has a very unique way of like people are very lazy in their own way, and just like the way they enjoy time and stuff. Just like how they approach coffee breaks in the afternoon are very popular and stuff, and just like how much people just enjoy coffee and like I don't know, just like I guess every culture has their own kind of way of laziness.
Does that stem from the British tea time?
Yeah, I think so.
Because they take forever for tea time in Britain.
I don't know, but I'm sure you can notice this everywhere, anywhere in the world in a way. But like I've just noticed this in India in its own kind of way. Like things are a lot slower there than here, obviously.
Well, whenever you have an entire 3 month of 120 degrees, it kind of has to slow down.
No, yeah,
bit, you know?
No, that's true. And just way more people, crazy. You have to be slower and stuff. Just like, but this is more because this is I'll have to maybe bring this up if I remember in the next couple of weeks. But Rosselini, like, this is one of his like theories. Is like laziness is one of the good progress, like a sign of a really good culture. If like your culture shows signs of laziness, you know, in a way. So let me read what he says about India first. He says, quote, "What struck me on my arrival in India was the obvious aspects of the crowds, their active laziness. I think of laziness as one of the great signs and movers of civilization. Sweet, dreamy laziness is the expression of active thinking brains. Sweet, dreamy laziness, which has nothing to do with sloth, is the pleasure of light, detached meditation, of the proper balance in life. And one of the aspects of this is being a gourmet, that is, having the pleasure of tasting. That certainly makes us better, quieter. The joy of living, like life, is a gift of God, even if it is intimate, and the more it is intimate, the more it sweetens our character, makes us patient and tolerant, gives us the proper balance of daily existence." And like, honestly, just like that idea of the pleasure of tasting, without even getting too much into it, like one of the big concepts in Indian like aesthetics is the idea of rasa. I'll probably go over it at some point in this podcast, but it's like it's just a concept in Indian aesthetics of like our reactions to certain artworks, and it's like the closest word to rasa is like taste, and so that's why when he said that, it's like this idea of like enjoying what you're watching as an art form, you know, like what are the emotions that arise, and that's why and he enters that through laziness too, because I love like this movie has that kind of laid back watching. That's why it can feel enjoyable watching it. Yes, exactly. That's on purpose. You know, it has this kind of meditative quality of watching. You know, like you can go deep if you want to, but you can also just enjoy the images if you want to, and that's kind of what I really love about it. But yeah, I think we can go ahead and get started. To get started, I wanted to mention what Tag Gallagher says. There's 4 themes in the movie that I don't know. It's interesting. Like they wouldn't come to me initially, but this is what he says. He says, "Quote: The 4 themes are: 1. Life is hard. Toil never ceases. 2. Rewards are modest or non-existent. 3. Extreme realism is required. And 4. The sensibility that we exist within a symbiosis of humans, animals and nature, of earth, air, fire, and water." Like that 4th one I definitely get.
Yeah.
And all of them I can definitely see what he's saying, but like, you know, they kind of do have to, they take some thinking to kind of, you can see that repeated throughout all the episodes, you know, this kind of struggle of man. But we start with like this kind of, it's almost like the start of like Illusion Travels by Streetcar, where he's like, just like it's like a high shot of the camera. He's like talking about the crowds of the city and stuff. Yeah. But this one is like at least he stays a little longer. Where he's kind of just the narrator's introducing like it feels more like a normal documentary. Yeah. Introducing like the different crowds, like how many different types of people live there, the languages, the buildings. It's making some kind of it's like making jokes of like how ugly some of the buildings are, and like they're trying to do better, and it cuts like different newer buildings and stuff like that. No, but I do like it too, like the kind of like shots of all the different types of people that live there, the kind of commotion that's going on. But then like we hear it's a lot of loud noises too on purpose, because then the cut when it goes to the narrator says, "But the more authentic India is found in the 580,000 villages."
It's like all these like palm trees.
Yes,
like...
and it's like it's a really quiet shot of just like this boat slowly going on the water. And then the narrator says, in just 1/20th of the world's surface lives 1/6 of the world's population. This harsh reality is the motor of modern India. And it's kind of just like it's still this documentary perspective with this narrator, kind of giving us just saying these like kind of lines as it's cutting through like we see the ancient city of Madurai with like the temples. It's honestly these great shots of like inside. I think there's like some shots with the cameras like on top of the temple and stuff. I love like because I've like mentioned that idea over again of like content expression being the same thing. Because like one of the quotes the narrator says is quote, "In the temples, images of life appear like grand celebration. It's the delirious expression of the people's love for life." And like that's one thing you always see. Like you see everything decorated and like the temples are so grand designed because like the narrator says it's like this. Even the temples are the expression of people's love for life in a way. Like one thing I always love when I go to India is just like all the colors you see. Compared to most like modern America city, a lot of things are gray and so like the more uniform in color for the most part.
Corporate.
Yeah. But yeah, then we
You don't like the blue and yellow of Walmart?
I mean,
Don't like the red balls outside Target.
blue and red, the biggest clash.
Yes, sir.
Modern era. No, but then we get to honestly my favorite scene in the movie, the elephants.
Yes.
I think it cuts to it's actually still the third person narrator at this point where it's like it says yeah, I've already said you see that part, and then we go to the elephants where we're watching them walk through the forest and stuff.
Yeah.
And the narrator says elephants are the bulldozers of India. And this is what I'm saying. You have to watch it.
Takes down a goddamn tree, just like
it's taking down the tree.
Bro, this one fucking elephant looks like he's showing off. He's like, look how much I can lift, man.
Yes.
Look how much I can lift.
No, it feels like this elephant has personality too. Like the way he's proud of like.
He's
what
like
exactly.
smiling when he's
he is,
dude. It's so funny.
No.
Elephants are insane creatures.
They are
Units, bro.
The fact that they're so smart and also like super gentle is like. With how big they are,
they can also like touch you.
They could also kill you if they wanted to, but they're like really gentle creatures.
Yeah.
For the most part.
I mean, it's funny that you mentioned the elephant scene as like this idea of like it makes you feel like you're there watching kind of thing. Because this is what Tal Gallagher says. He says, because he's talking about how some people might he says some people might object to the idea of India's symbiosis of matter and spirit being too general. And then he says, quote, "On the other hand, few moments in cinema come close to the sensibility of being there, of being specifically in this Kalapur April 1957 symbiosis, than does the scene of the elephants after work, lumbering down to the river to be bathed." And then he quotes the Godard quote he says, quote, "Godard described it famously, India Matri Bhumi is the creation of the world." It's like, yeah, that's to me another way to say it perfectly, why the scene is so good. Like we get the shots of like the elephant working, the sounds too are so good. Of just like it feels so slow, you know, like the way they're working. Like you can't rush an elephant.
No.
It's like doing such hard work. It's like you can only do so much. You know, you have to let it go at their pace. Like this whole maybe that's why it feels so great. It's like this whole scene feels at their pace in a way.
Yeah, that's yeah. And the humans understand it. Which
yes,
is
exactly. Yeah, that's a good.
thing.
Yeah, you have to add that too. That's a good way. Like this kind of symbiosis, like you said. But then this is when it switches to the third person from the third person.
The
narrator.
elephant guy.
Yeah, to the elephant master.
The dude with the
It's
giant
elephant
snouts.
An elephant master is named a Mahout, so I'll call him a Mahout.
I'm just gonna call him the guy with the big nose.
And I love how he's introduced to. Oh, this guy has a big nose. I didn't even know this.
I'm pretty sure this is the same guy. The young guy with the little hat on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he has a giant nose, man.
I didn't know this. No, but I love how he starts because the perspective shift happens with the complaint, which is so funny. Because he's like, elephants only work from 7 to 10 a.m. That it's too hot for them, whereas we Mahouts have to work all day. And that's how it makes these shifts. Like, honestly, damn, one of the great shifts in perspective too. Just with this little complaint. And that's when it starts. Like, we're getting these shots of like these 4 elephants. Or first, it's a shot of this one elephant. this is the magic of cinema. It could have been like 4 different elephants we've seen in each shot of the smiling and stuff we've talked about. We're gonna call it the same elephant. You know, it's the same guy.
Yeah.
And you know, he's finally getting rewarded because
Yes,
he just lays down like satisfyingly, like okay, my day's done.
This one elephant. So like a lot of the elephants have their trunks under the water, and they just keep on raising him out. This one guy that has his trunk laying over his tusk as he just lays there sleeping. I'm just like, yeah, this guy's got it right, man. Oh my god.
That's when they're in the water, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about the shot before where he's
Like whenever
he
he's
gets
laying
dusted.
there. Yeah.
Where the guy, it's like a long shot. Just
Well, just
it's like almost
yeah.
rhythmic the way the thing is hitting
100%.
and the elephant just looks like he's enjoying he's just enjoying it so much. But then like said,
Yeah.
like we get to the water because it's a long slow shot of like there's 4 or 5 elephants in a line.
when they're like walking
as
in
like
line.
the way they're walking too, just like in rhythm, like they've done it before like a million
It's
times.
almost like you could have put like
you know?
baby elephant walk over it.
It's too slow. It's too slow. Howard Hawks can never go this slow.
That's not true. You the way you said looked like that after you said that, you immediately regret.
We gotta try it.
Honestly, it might work.
It would
what I'm
work.
saying.
It would work.
Fuck.
I mean, work for Hawks.
Okay, stop. Okay.
We gotta try it after.
No, but then this is like we're kind of getting like. It's honestly we're getting some more elephant documentary facts through this kind of guy's personal story where he's like telling us how he has to take care of the elephant, So we're kind of getting both. Where he's like says the elephants eat 1,300 to 1,800 pounds a day.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that much. It might be.
It's probably that
seems like
much.
too
I mean,
much.
they're like they weigh like 2 tons. So
So they're eating their whole body weight every
it
day?
takes a lot. It takes a lot to keep an elephant.
No,
going.
it can't be.
Their shit's probably insane.
But
I mean, if you think about us, like what we weigh 200 pounds and we eat 2,000 calories technically.
that's not pounds though.
I know it's not pounds,
Yeah.
but,
yeah,
but a ton is also how many pounds? How many pounds?
I mean, they probably eat a lot, but
They definitely eat a
Oh,
lot.
yeah,
yeah, how big they are. Like,
but anyway, like we've been making these little details, like little documentary details, not the most important thing. Watching this, we're kind of watching now. Like we're watching a love story in a way.
Definitely.
I love how he says like there's the important day in my life, and we see like the puppeteers from out of town coming.
well, okay.
like,
Also,
watching this,
you missed the guy chopping down the leaves in the trees so the elephants can eat him.
Yeah.
Is that like when he's trying to impress the girl?
It's right after the bath scene. It's this one.
It happens a few times.
Oh, okay, yeah.
No, I love that so much.
scene.
Like
This
Yeah.
is kind of one of the like rule of 3. I feel like comedy jokes because he shows that like 3 times, and the 3rd time's hilarious because the tree's
Yes.
just all bare, and it's just
Yeah.
showing how long he's been doing this, trying to get this girl's attention, basically.
Yes. Well, why he's been focusing on that one tree?
Oh, yeah,
'Cause usually he goes to a
100%.
different tree. every
Yeah.
time. No, that I love that shot.
Just like all the leaves are gone. I think he actually says that. I can't remember, but
No, but then we see this puppet show come. We see like the girl they kind of like this is like the most melodramatic we get in the movie maybe. The kind of classic cinema of the 2 lovers looking at each other and falling in love right away. It's like in kind of medium close-ups too.
see that face.
Yeah. But then because then we get the puppet show and these great shots of like the puppet show happening. And then, like, the cut to the outside of him having, like, complaining again about how he never has time for fun because the elephants have to eat him at night.
The elephants want to work 3 hours, and I'm here still feeding him at night. Yeah.
No, it definitely is. It's like an elephant time scene. You know, like, the
Yes.
humans are having to live according to the elephant's time. Yeah.
It's like who's the master and who's the servant here.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, but then this is another thing where he's like, in a way, as he's also talking about how the elephants fall in love, it's like kind of in a way talking about humans too, if you want it to be, yeah, because he's like getting excited because the elephants might be in love and it doesn't happen that often, and he's gonna get more time off.
It's like I get 2 whole days
Yeah.
basically.
There's like a funny thing where he's like, I'm afraid to say the females are more brazen than the males
It's so
are.
good. The
And
males
it's
are
like,
more
the
dignified.
shot he uses, this is where I'm like, this is where cinema is so great, where you can like use a narration, like, because he must have got the shot is so great, where it's like we see her like little trunk, her like not little, but her trunk coming like to grab the guy's
his
tusk,
tusk,
and like to pull him away, and that's when he says that. It's like I'm afraid to say the females are more brazen than the males.
so good.
It's like a great way to put that over what's going on. But then he's like, they need to be left alone. They're extremely shy animals. And then we see there's like the elephants kind of walking alone in the forest together with these like wide shots of them. alone walking. It's like, damn, it's so good. But that kind of just parallels to like basically that's after they right after we see that we see the scene we already talked about of him climbing the same tree just so he can see her every day. What if she sits at the same spot? And like the third day it's like a barren tree and he's like having to climb to the very top just to get anything. But right after that is when he asks for the father with the hand in marriage, and we see this is what Blake mentioned that scene earlier. Apparently it's like a tradition where
so funny.
Apparently, it's a custom tradition where the two fathers will meet each other and just make fun of each other.
And bicker about each other's kids. Like, they're making fun of their own kids. It's hilarious. Bring it back.
It's hilarious, and we don't see anything. We don't hear any of the insults or anything. It just,
we don't understand them, at least. If you spoke the language, you would probably be able to.
No, I'm saying it's still hilarious. It just, from watching them talk, and then one of them will be like, like the way they're laughing about it and stuff.
I think whenever we were watching this with Sean, we were literally talking over it, saying what we would be saying as the dads. So that's what makes you feel though. Like,
you're inserting yourself.
Yeah, it's just like
I wonder how bad they're getting. Like, that's what my thoughts are. Like, I wonder how actually bad they're actually willing to go. You know, because you still want them to get married. You don't want to go.
Yeah.
No, but even before that, I forgot. It's actually one of my low key favorite moments of the movie where he says his father's come for the first time because he says he always wears that Muslim hat that Blake mentions, but he's Hindu, and so he knows his father's always going to criticize. He's scared his father's going to criticize him for that, and we get the shot of the dad just with his hands he's clearly lecturing him about something, and the narration says he's a man of principles and he's always criticizing me, and then we just he just hangs on this guy getting lectured by his dad, and you're like, damn. And that's after then the father's me and everything, and then we get a wedding.
See, this wedding part is a very, very, very funny transition, if you want it to be, because it's I think he says, and with that, there's the end of my freedom or something, because it can go, you could, parallel that to either, or, you could think about that with him just talking about, the elephants, the elephants are done making love, but at the same time, he just got married, he's like, and now there's the end of my freedom.
No, yes. No,
it's freaking hilarious, exactly. Man. You can read it. It works in all ways. So.
And we've been saying that's how this story's being told. It's supposed to work both ways, so it kind of perfect. It works like that too. And then the way it cuts too, it kind of also goes with that theme because it cuts to 10 months later. He skips the honeymoon phase.
Oh yeah.
Because it's and not only skips the honeymoon phase, it's 10 months later because that's when the elephant gives birth.
Yeah. Too. So halfway through the pregnancy, because the funny thing about this scene is at 10 months the female gets annoyed with the male.
Yes. Because he's as you know, they're pregnant for 20 months.
As you know, because I love how he says that.
That's crazy. There's also a great shot where he's because he's the male is starting to annoy the female. Yeah. And then it's a wise old elephant comes to protect her.
A wise old female comes to step in the middle.
Yeah, comes to steps and they both walk away together. It's so great.
So good.
This one, it makes that shots like that makes me want to actually start learn more about elephants.
Oh, 100%.
That idea.
Well, they're very social creatures.
What does that mean? How is he annoying her? What does that mean?
Just his presence, man.
Yeah. What's he doing?
Working with a lot of pregnant women.
I would love to see that.
I want to ride one.
Well, I will tell you.
I mean, that would be fun to ride.
A male one and then a baby one as well. Or a mini one. Not baby.
Mini one?
Like an Atari.
Those Atari.
That's a baby elephant.
Ride them things, though.
I wonder, baby. You can't ride that.
I'm not that heavy. They're probably strong enough, right?
Yeah.
Maybe catch them when they're in the middle of growing to the taller ones.
Then they're perfect height, kind of like a horse height or something.
Yeah.
They probably grow super fast though. This is another thing I don't know about elephants.
I don't know.
We'll have to watch.
I need to become an elephant.
Let's watch it. We watched. Wait, did we watch an elephant documentary already?
For the podcast?
No, not for the podcast. Just by ourselves.
Maybe.
I can't remember.
But yeah, that's basically how this elephant scene ends. Is he's my freedom has come to an end too because he has to send his wife. He says he has to send his wife away so he can take care of the elephants again. Because
he's also and my wife is also pregnant and I won't have any time for her. So.
You can't tell if he's serious, honestly, when he's my freedom has come to an end. Where he's because he's having to take care of one pregnant woman, but he's losing another one.
Yeah.
You know? Honestly, I'm just not thinking about that, too.
It's hilarious, man.
Yeah, but then the last shot starts as... It's another kind of just continuation. He's starting his job again in a way, too. There's no, kind of big moment or anything. It's just, his life goes on. But then it cuts to the kind of... these, kind of more nature shots We get like some shots of the river and stuff. Yeah, in the mountains.
Well, isn't this the dam portion now?
Yes,
because he's starting with the rivers from the Himalayan mountains and stuff like that.
Actually,
because
they
have to build the dams to stop all this flooding. Basically, that always happens and kills a lot more. Because I love that. I love the quote whenever he's looking at the memorial for all the people that died building the dam. Whenever he says, like, if we needed a memorial for all the people that died because of the flooding that this dam will prevent, it would take up the entire dam.
Yes, no,
that's the reason they do it.
Yes.
So,
no, I'm glad you said that because like. It almost feels random. The kind of first we're getting these nature shots of the river and stuff. It's almost these poetic moments. I have to read this quote because one of my favorites. It's like a few different. It's like you can tell Rosselini was like just reading different stuff about India and he wanted to get like different quotes that he read and stuff because it's like or maybe other people had read and gave them to him. But anyway, because like we're getting these shots of nature, and then we get this narration where it says, "Beautiful lotus flowers silently rest on the water. Everything that is extremely beautiful or useful is considered extremely sacred." First of all, right there, that's another way to say like content and expression is like the same thing. To say everything that is extremely beautiful or useful is considered extremely sacred. Like to say those are the same things, you know.
I also want to say these are some of the best shots in the movie.
Yes, all these shots.
First
of all, have you seen Before My Eyes? Money Calls like
yes, sir.
Yes.
20 minutes or.
I don't remember like anything from it.
It's like okay, then if you think this. I mean, these are great shots, but Rosselini, I have to be honest, Money Call one-ups them.
Why won't you pick him?
His is only one region, though.
Why don't want you pick him?
He's coming.
Eventually. He's not going to be my next one, but he's going to be my, like, eventually.
Yeah, he's going. But anyway, to get back to kind of this quote, this narrator, like, as we're getting these nature shots, it's almost like these kind of, like, I don't know, there's like so much that you can say after it. This kind of like a Chris Marker narration or like, you know, almost Terrence Malick narration or just like a third person. Like you can tell it's just clearly just the person making it.
Well, yeah, he's literally reading
he's quoting other people,
yes. Poem,
but it's clearly like the own filmmaker's thoughts in a way. Because he's like says, when faced with death, the general belief is that when a man dies, his life doesn't end because he's reincarnated in another. But no one knows in whom. Therefore, all men are brothers. And in the Shanti Parva, a Brahmin tells a man who is mourning his son, "You are truly desperate because you're not mourning for yourself but for someone else." And the poem also says, "I believe my own soul does not belong to me, but all creation belongs to me, and by virtue of the certainty, I'm never too happy or too sad." That last line especially goes to everything, the idea of like the impulse that drives the Rosselini film changing from like a kind of dramatic moment to this something that happened before the film even started. You know, like this idea of like I've mentioned Rosselini Buddhism a few times, but that idea of like never being by the certainty of never being too happy or too sad, that sounds like also like a Buddhist idea in a way too, or even Hindu in a way, like that calm. But then like it's a good way because he's also describing the water too, like how powerful it is. And I hadn't even really put the two together. Like that's why we go to the dam specifically right after. But like there's one quote where he says, "The water flows placidly by, indifferent to the architecture that it swallows slowly up."
Yes.
And we see like the kind of water being.
It's basically just like
these ruins on the side of the river.
Ruins, being swallowed by the water.
And then I just love how it goes just almost seamlessly because it's quoting these like kind of like philosophical books of India. Like first he says in the Mahabharata, the great Indian epic poem, in the Bhagavad Gita, the philosophical book of life, it says that every word uttered and every action taken remains with us like an image reflected in a mirror, and judgment will only be pronounced later on. It also says both knowledgeable and ignorant people are equally happy. Only the mediocre are unhappy. The truth is in everything, even partially in what is untrue. Karma, meaning actions, represents man's duties. And then almost seamlessly, it says, the next line says, the Hirakud Dam was built stretching 27 miles. Access roads are being built. Like that last line is like the kind of poetic where it says karma, meaning actions, represents man's duty. And then the next sentence is talking about like what man has done, built. Apparently this dam is still the world's largest man-made dam or artificial dam.
Lake.
No, or dam.
Yeah.
The Hirakud Dam. I guess that's a lake too. In a way.
Well, it's probably I mean, they're building a lake. So.
Yeah, the artificial lake.
Yeah.
But the dam. That's
but the dam too.
Yeah. Yeah, because apparently this dam was like one of the first things. Because this movie was made really soon after Indian independence. Because we said what this movie was
59.
59.
Yeah.
So it was only like I forgot what year they got independence. Yeah, we looked that up for me, but it's probably less than 15 years for sure.
Was it before or after World War II?
It was after.
Was it 48?
August 15th, 1947.
47. Okay, yeah. So 12 years. And apparently this was one of their first huge projects they did as as their own nation. Was building this huge dam, and like he even says like that.
Yeah.
This guy is almost. Rossi never says it, but this guy in a way is supposed to represent the leader of India at the time, Nehru.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I just like honestly, I thought the fucking like elephant herder. This was who we're following this entire time. Like, as it's just Asians. Like that's just what I was thinking. I was like, I have no idea.
It doesn't matter. It's just a man.
Yeah, it's just a man.
Following
Yeah,
guy.
just a man.
Yeah, like but more specifically, this guy's supposed to be Nehru in a sense because like Ross. I wanted to mention this story because Nehru was honestly, don't know too much about him, but I do know like how influential he was on this kind of period of Indian creating India basically as a new nation. But Rosselini was a big fan of him, and like Nehru was actually friends with Rosselini too, and so they were flying together like before they made the movie. Nehru was in a plane with him, showing him this Hirakud Dam and the progress they had made, and they were flying above, looking at it. And so let me read what Rosselini says. He says, quote, "So I was seeing Nehru's profile as he gazed at this immense work, and through him I was seeing it. I was suddenly very moved at seeing Nehru's immense sadness. He wasn't at all gazing with joy or exaltation, but with a deep sadness. He had this lip heavy like this, and I was so moved that I made a ridiculous gesture. I pressed him on his arm, and I said, 'God bless you.' And he turned towards me threateningly with a sudden hate. And then he caught his hate, and he put his head down and his arm between his legs, and did not raise his head again because he had caught himself giving me a gesture that was almost insulting. And he said, I never spoke to him about this. I asked his daughter, Indira Gandhi, who was also a Prime Minister of India, and she said, what was it? She couldn't give me an explanation. Probably it was because I had surprised him in a moment of profound emotion and of sadness. Sadness because he had known what it cost. I had even been a little scared, thinking maybe it was because I had said God, and he's not religious. But he says almost what Feuerbach says. God is in need of man, and he says God is in need of man, and he says it in a way that's very clear. I just love that whole quote. Like, I'm sure someone listening will know more about Nehru than I do, but like, Blake had mentioned the idea of like how many lives would have been lost, but also the cost of what it costs to actually build it too. We get that as this guy's walking through, like his personal sacrifice of what him and his wife are having to sacrifice, and you kind of get like into that feeling, the sacrifice of like having to do something, a project this big,
Oh yeah.
Like even just the shots of them walking like with the baskets, like
it's insane.
Where they're
it's
saying,
some of the best shots in the movie.
Yeah, where he's saying like brick by brick, stone by stone, or something like that, and just like this, it's almost like the same kind of walking the elephants are doing. Just like this slow progress walking. Like this is what it took.
Like this is something that would be in a Vertov movie, 100%.
I don't know if it'd be so slow though.
He might speed it up.
I see what you're saying.
No, I'm just saying like this national, basically togetherness, collectiveness, doing something for the greater good, essentially.
And technology being a good thing.
Yes, technology being
progress
a good thing
being a humanity.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I honestly yes. I
like this needed to happen almost.
Yes. Honestly, yeah. The only thing is like, I don't know if Vertov would ever use even a personal story like this. Like even on this level, even though Rosselini is still very kind of like abstract in a way, like it's not very like the character's not fleshed out or anything, real characters, but then when we get this on like shots of like I love how proud this guy is too, just of his own job in the dam. He's like how proud he is and stuff as he's like walking around, kind of like appreciating his work. He goes and like gets his like final paycheck and stuff, and when he's like getting his new job, and he says like a guy like me is always in demand, and like he talks about how his wife is mad at him
because they're leaving,
because they have to leave after like this where his son was born and stuff like that. And that's actually when he says a guy like me is always in demand though.
It's kind of crazy because he's basically like, my wife is basically not very happy right now, and then he just gets on a car and goes the completely opposite way.
And
leaves her and her son and the son.
No, he does. No, he does sound kind of like an asshole too a little bit.
Yeah.
No, but this is another thing where like he gets dropped off at the dam site again. It's like he's doing his last kind of like walk through. It's almost like a ritualistic moment of him like walking in the lake and stuff. But like
honoring the victim.
Yeah, it's all that.
Yes.
Yeah. Damn, I don't know what level. It's like it doesn't even. The movie just goes in and out of these different levels. Almost at at will. So you can't really say it's like one thing going on. But like he's walking. He's like as he's walking, he's the narration's talking. It's like one of my favorite quotes. Because you could say it's also like this quote kind of describes how to appreciate Rossellini's films too, like the details. Because like what he says is, these days it doesn't seem like much. People just say, "quote a dam's been built," but they have no idea of the work, and that's all he says. But it's like to me that's what makes a lot of Rossellini movies like he appreciates the details in like history too. Like the walking is like one example of like how much walking the saints must have actually had to done. Just living like that, like stuff like that, stuff a film would usually skip over, in a way. And then as he's walking, there's another quote where he says, "After all, more than one dam needs to be built in this life." As he's like saying why they still need to leave. You can't be in one place. Another thing I talked about with the ending of Flowers of St. Francis. But there's like this kind of like weird moment too, where like the soundtrack is doing these like electronic sounds, where he's like walking past like the electric grid. And he's like saying electricity is magic, but then he's like it's not magic because everything can be explained. He's like going back and forth on whether it's magic or not. I don't know. It's like that's why like when Rossellini says it's a very experimental movie, I have to agree. Like especially with some of these moments because it's like, yeah. At this point, it's like you can't just say this is a documentary,
No.
And there's like another good part where he's like walking and we see a funeral. That's why he's just like walking and he's just seeing all this stuff happen too. Because like he's walking to another part and he's like sees a funeral going on. And he says like one of the best lines in the movie where he says, "Death is sad for those who remain, but perhaps it's good to dissolve into nature." And that's when that basically ends the scene with him and his wife kind of walking on to their next, the same way the last scene ends. They're continuing their life, walking away from the camera. Actually, I missed I missed actually the actual part where he goes into the lake.
Oh yeah, that shot.
It's maybe probably my favorite. It's
it
the most
like,
spiritual shot of the movie to me.
It literally looks like a painting.
It does, like how dark it is. It's almost like
dark and
like
the,
whenever
like the bird, like the little like circles of light.
Whenever you're talking about myths, this is what I think of in this movie because this is like a holy lake now to me. Like after I see this image,
yes, because and what he says too, it makes it holy too. Because he says, "Who would have thought when I came from my ritual bath that my destiny would hold this surprise? Who would have thought that men like us would be able to create a lake where there was just a pond?" I just love it because it works on so many levels, like literally they create a lake where there's a pond, but just like this idea of man creating, we're from something to something greater in a way, like this kind of belief in man, and then and it's like applying like a religious connotation to it, like as he's taking this like ritual bath. Damn, it's so good, and just like the soundtrack too. I almost want to like insert it right here. Some of the sounds we're getting like during the scene because that's also what makes it very kind of just like. It's this weird mix of like contemplation, but also like these synth sounds of like
meditation.
Electric, but like he's mixing like these electronic sounds with it too, so it's like really interesting. Some of the sounds in this are like so good. It might be his best sounding movie because that's one thing Tag Gallagher does say. Like towards the later half of his movies, like he didn't pay attention to the sound nearly as much.
That makes sense.
But this movie, like with some of the soundtrack stuff he's doing, is just so. Good.
I would say Blaise Pascal is up there because of how he uses like the. Almost he like repeats this like music throughout. It's like dark music. It's like super interesting.
Oh yes, the way he
that I will never forget.
Okay.
But we'll get to that obviously.
And the Messiah had like great soundtracks. So
that too,
so even then, I kind of have to scream, but still, like some of these sounds are just so good. But then that's I want to talk about that scene because we kind of skipped over it. But then like that's how the scene ends with them the kind of couple walking away from the camera. And we get some more shots of like how India used to have ancient used to have some fortresses and stuff, and we get some like shots of it's almost like this one I can't help but think of Mind of Clay and Monty Call through some of these shots. So when how he's filming, like especially in this one area, he's filming like a village, and then he then he cuts to this. This is where I'm saying it's kind of funny in certain moments where it's supposed to be an Indian guy, but it's like the most Italian voice you've ever heard in your life, because it's like it cuts. This might be my favorite story in a way, especially the way I've described this kind of change in the idea of an impulse in Rosselini. The story of this husband and wife couple, and especially this guy, because like it cuts to this deep Italian voice talking about like how he likes living in the forest, like the tigers and stuff. He says he loves the tiger songs in the air. I just love this guy's voice. I can't help it. It's so Italian. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Like he didn't even try. Yeah, he says the jungle is the temple where they celebrate their love rituals. Honestly, it made me think of some of these shots. Makes me think of Tropical Melody too.
Oh, 100%. Whenever he's going to face himself, basically in the forest.
Makes me wonder if he's seen it.
I'm sure he has. I'm sure Where Is It Call's seen this.
I hope so. I can see it. And that's what I'm saying. It's like as someone who's become a morning person too, I love this guy when he says, "When I wake up at the first sliver of light, I'm surrounded by an explosion of joy." I can't help but agree.
This fucking guy.
He's right.
Dawn is amazing.
Yes. And then he says, "My wife and I don't need to express many words. Gestures are enough. An interchangeable solidarity between our eyes. Besides, it's been a while since our reciprocal duties were distributed between us. What more is there to say?" And we just, like Blake described earlier, it's like we never see any of the words being spoken. We just see their people talking a lot. And this, we don't even have to see them talking because they already know. You know, just like he said, like that quote says, just gestures are enough to see, like, basically how in sync they are. You know, they've been married that long. And then he comes out of his, like, house and he says, "The only thing I need now is a contemplative life. Only one place in the world can satisfy my needs, the jungle." And that's where you said, like, it's like almost like Tropical Melody, where he's like a man going into the jungle, you know? Where he says, quote, "When I'm alone in the jungle, I'm very aware of the presence of nature, and I feel I become one with it little by little." I know you said, you quoted the, is it, which Chaplin movie is it? Is it the
Sunnyside?
Yeah, Sunnyside, yeah.
That was for Flowers Day, for instance.
Yeah, you quoted that for us,
yeah.
but it actually applies, like, it's almost exactly this
Honestly,
quote, too.
yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, the quote is, what's it? The church, the sky.
Yes.
Or no, his church, the sky, his altar, the landscape.
Yes.
Damn.
Yes.
Damn, that's just a title card, bro. God damn. it's just like a narration, but it's like so beautiful in a way. Like.
Yes. Damn. But I love this kind of the whole theme of this movie. This is the one where it's like there's just so many little moments. Like I know Blake loves this one where the guy just like where he's like by himself trying to smoke, and he's like smoking the last spice I have left.
Yes, sir.
Kind of this like little moments that we can kind of people can relate to as they're watching. But then like we get the kind of the most drama in the movie of this tiger attacking the town, and this is the most kind of you could
it's the
say
tiger attacking the town because we attacked its home first. So.
Okay.
It's a very Pompoko like this also feels like Pompoko in certain
yes,
in certain
because I did
100%.
skip the whole the
like
machine, the loud
machines come in and you it's
yes.
very much like you were saying with the soundtrack. He's making sure you hear that because he's making sure you hear what the animals are hearing as they're all running away
yes.
from their home.
Yes. No, because he says the jungle was destroyed. I realized the natural equilibrium had been destroyed. Talking about this, basically this, modern machine coming in and ruining the rhythms of like the jungle that have existed, you know. And then he says that line like, we basically start to discover how the tiger's starting to attack in ways it's not attack. You know, it would never attack a porcupine, that kind of thing.
The camera going to like this POV too, like it feels like a POV shot of like wandering through it.
No,
it's pretty crazy
in the jungle, yes. And I love like this how he's like trying to figure out how to handle the situation without killing the tiger.
Yeah,
because he says, "I know how dangerous an injured tiger can be. That's when they become man-eaters." First of all, that applies specifically to the situation they're talking about, but you could say that applies to man too.
Yeah,
you know, like, like a man is like more dangerous while he's like hurt, or like willing to attack.
Man's
more,
never
you know,
more
where he's more
dangerous than
desperate.
whenever he's
Basically.
cornered.
Yeah, cornered, desperate. You know, this kind of, you know, how the tiger is. And then we learned the tiger's actually attacked a man. All he hears is the scream as he's in his house. You know, like the equilibrium's been messed up. And then we see like the tiger hunt as people are gathered, just deciding what to do with it, and we get that great like line of him saying, "Why kill? Isn't the forest big enough for us all?"
Yeah.
And that's when
the translation of the Criterion Channel was "Isn't the world big enough for us?"
Isn't
all?
the world biggest? Okay.
I don't know.
Actually, that's what I wrote down. What did I say?
Forest.
You said forest.
Oh,
It works. It works.
I don't know where I
So the
got
forest is
then.
big enough
Okay.
for us all.
He says world.
Yeah, that's his world.
Damn. Interesting. I don't know where I got forest. But anyway, it's funny. This scene also ends with like a fire.
Yep.
As like a good thing. The same way like Jenna Pro's like him like walking away. I don't know. But this one ends like him starting a fire to kind of like protect the tiger without it being killed. And then he says, "Truly, the world is a big place. There's room for everyone." And that's kind of how that one ends. And this last scene is
Monkey.
the monkey.
I mean,
Apparently, like
this is the peak of cinema right here.
Yeah. And Rosselini actually like got a monkey too, and like wanted to keep it as a pet for a while. And apparently they even I forgot if I think they even took it back to Italy, but like hated it, so they.
This dude is insane.
I forget. Maybe they left it in India, but it was like in New Delhi, and they just had to give it away.
Rosselini is like, what if all of my just like random impulsive thoughts? Like, what if he actually did it? Because like
that's how he lived a lot of his
no,
life.
I've thought about like I was like, damn, that monkey would be cool as hell. Like I've definitely thought that a lot. But like when I think about it like a little bit more, I'm like, yeah, no fucking way I'm doing that. But like, they're really cute. I don't know.
No, they are. No, but apparently it hated living indoors, obviously, and stuff.
Makes sense.
No, but this one is like, it's funny. It's like, oh, you think it's gonna be a cute story of a guy and his monkey or something?
Yeah.
Nope.
Right away, it's like the exact opposite.
I feel like this is something every Indian can relate to though, because it's hot as hell in India. So.
Yes. And the way it's shot too, like the way you keep showing the sun and like
And the vultures, dude.
yes, that we keep hearing the vultures and like how this one also feels very slow.
Yes.
The way it's like waiting for this like this guy to die and like what's gonna happen with this. We're waiting for what's gonna happen to this monkey with the vultures, basically.
This monkey Loki has a mullet too. It kind of looks like it.
The monkey does.
Like, Loki looks like he has a mullet, bro.
Damn.
Hold up.
But Blake also mentioned the heat. The heat of the movie. Okay, I can see it. It kind of looks old.
That's like a mullet.
Or she. It's actually she. That's what.
Oh man.
No, but then because before even we got to the guy's name is Duleep with his monkey, we also see like the heat is so bad that people can't even walk on the roads, and we get one of my favorite shots of the cows walking through the river because they can't walk through the roads.
He was like rivers have replaced roads.
Yes. Roads are abandoned, rivers are used instead.
Yes.
It's like amazing. And you think they're gonna be on boats or something, but they're just like walking. But yeah, then that's when we get this guy collapsing and he's dying. We don't know how she's gonna escape. We think she's gonna, because she's chained to him. So we think she's gonna die too. It doesn't really show how, but she basically eventually frees herself, like barely in time, and she runs off. And it cuts to her now in the city.
It's like also just like perfect use of an animal. Like she looks so sad, man. So sad. Like she looks actually worried that he's like fallen over there and like is actually dying. And I'm like, oh, what the hell?
No, these are like yes, this is Rosselini actually using close-ups to like stir emotions.
I know. It's like, what the hell, man?
No, and look, this is the shots of this guy like laying down, like lifeless, and her just like standing too. It's like the way cinema can start emotions through like positioning and stuff. You know, like Rosselini said. He does a really good job like making her feel like she's abandoned because she appears back to the city, and we see kind of just like some city stuff going on now, more documentary. We see like a cow chariot race happening, which is kind of fun.
That reminded me of a fucking Three Bad Men with the cattle race.
Oh yes.
The Stampede or whatever.
What were they? They were racing for land.
They were racing for land. Yeah.
This just looked like for
this
fun.
one just looked for
gambling. I think they were gambling.
One little thing that happens, I love whenever the monkey arrives in the city because she goes to the river and like puts her feet in the water because they're so hot from walking.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, no.
I didn't realize that.
Shows how much she's been on the road.
No, but we cut to her. The narrator says she's entertaining the crowds like she's used to doing. She found another job. It says she collects money she has no use for as she's like getting thrown money as she's like doing a street performance. There's just some great. There's like one of my favorite shots of the movie is where she's like standing on I think a temple edge or something, and the clouds are behind her. So she's just like alone and stuff. She goes and like steals some food. Just to survive from like a temple market or something. It says it says wild monkeys are a threat to her because they smell man on her, but she also can't like live with man, of course, as well. So she's like stuck in between.
Yeah.
Rossellini's really playing out the downside. This kind of modern. That's why I was saying like this is supposed to be a negative ending for him in a way. But then the version we see, and how everyone sees now, because. It says, on her last legs. It's almost like sudden. It just says, on her last legs, she gets adopted by a new master. And Ramu begins a life anew. And it, zooms out, and then we see, the city again.
She got moved?
No.
She got moved.
The producers do. No. Let me read what Tag Gallagher says. Because this is another kind of happy ending thing. We've already talked about happy endings last week with the ending of Voyage in Italy. Let me read what he says. He says, quote, the fourth episode, the Duleep the Monkey, was originally to have developed this notion of animals' dependence on man, already illustrated in the elephant story. At the end, because there's no other choice, he follows the people when they leave, and continues to search. Actually, I read the quote wrong. He says, quote, the fourth episode, Duleep the Monkey, was originally to have developed the story notion of animals' dependence on man, already illustrated in the elephant story. A trained monkey, Ramu, is left destitute when his master dies from a cobra. Not understanding death, he tries repeatedly to stir him to action. Even later, when he arrives in a village by himself and does tricks for the crowds, he still expects the master to scoop up the coins people throw. At the end, because there's no other choice, he follows the people when they leave, and, quote, continues to search in vain among thousands of walking legs for the big-boned ones of Enil, his old friend, the gentlest of his friends. And that's apparently how the original movie ended, with that kind of negative ending. And then he says, quote, eventually, after India Matri Bhumi's first screening, in order to give the whole film an upbeat ending, a new conclusion was filmed. Now the monkey finds a new master and a new job in a circus. And he says in both versions, Duleep the Monkey did not find enlightenment. He never understood the master's death. He just went on searching. So Tag Gallagher still says,
it works.
It still works in a way. It just...
Yeah. You also
it's like the one... it does feel sudden, like the ending. It just all of a sudden comes. It's like, oh, and then he finds a...
But the monkey, he's doing the trapeze thing. I can't hate on it.
And you're like, okay, maybe he could find a job. I thought it was she. I guess it is he. And to go, and I've said kind of I love that the Godard quote will always stick in my head. The idea of this movie being the creation of the world, because it's also how I think of Tree of Life too.
I've thought about connection between Rosselini and Malik before.
But this idea of why does he all of a sudden cut to a creation of the world or the creation of the world? But to him, he would say the whole movie is about that. Even the specific.
Well, they both in multiple of their movies kind of zooming in and out.
Yes, exactly.
Like Thin Red Line does that.
But they zoom in out and they're saying it's the same thing, life, or the creation of life.
Yes.
But to kind of end the last shot is again it zooms out. That's why I said it also reminds me of Illusions Travels by Streetcar, because it also ends a very similar way where it tells these specific stories and it zooms out on the crowd again, and it says again the crowds, the enormous crowds. And to close off, let me read what Rosselini said about the ending of this movie, where he says, quote, his master dead, the poor monkey, who is now neither monkey nor human, feels the need to go both among the monkeys feels the need to go both among the monkeys and among the people, to go backward and forward. This indeed is the drama of each of us. It's a struggle we're all in life. I think that's a good way to end, how Rosselini sees and just kind of struggle with this whole movie, the forward and backward, the human and animal sides of us, etc. But yeah, that's all I had for India. Two of my all-time favorites.
Two great movies.
These are both tier 1 for me. I can say that for sure.
Tier 1, damn.
Yeah, that's easy.
I thought everything you made before India was not good.
I never said that. Well, except for Flowers.
It's not the real
and Euro 51. Those two.
And
By song.
There's
Alright, but next week we are doing. It's there's so many historical. I want everyone to watch. You should watch all of them if you can, or at least slowly over time. but we can only do 4, obviously. So the first 2 we're doing is the taking of power of Louis XIV and Socrates. Yeah, that's what we're doing next week. But yeah, until
Awesome.
next week, hope to see you floating through the clouds.